Chapter 13-15. Xiaoye was poisoned and injured. She couldn't protect herself. Yi Qinghan didn't want to be entangled with this creature. Therefore, before it appeared, he took Xiaoye and fled far away. He spread his wings and fused with the little beast. He spread his wings and flew with the wind, covering a distance of 90,000 miles. Screech, Yi Qinghan swooped down from the desolate mountain range. After escaping for 10,000 miles, he swooped down to a beautiful valley. There were clear lakes, tall mountains, waterfalls, and small streams. It was a good place to recuperate. Hua! Yi Qinghan brought Xiaoye to the bottom of the waterfall. He sat cross-legged on the ground and pressed his palms on Xiaoye's back. He used his powerful snow elemental supreme god power to expel the poison from her body. Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan's blood boiled and his dragon blood boiled. Yi Qinghan's eyes were tightly shut. He had already pushed his divine sense and divine power to the peak, but this damned poison gas was like a sticky candy that wrapped around every inch of Xiaoye's skin and flesh. His snow divine power couldn't do anything to it at all. The two of them were sweating profusely. They were fighting with death, fighting for survival. However, the poison didn't weaken. Instead, it was erupting crazily. Damn it, I can't subdue you. Yi Qinghan was furious. He released his divine senses. The Realm Lord's divine senses scanned a myriad of worlds. He wanted to see where this place belonged. However, he couldn't find the boundary. He guessed that the other Realm Lords couldn't sense this place either. Therefore, he used the power of desolation. Once the power of desolation entered her body, it exploded and destroyed the poison. It forced the poison out of her internal organs. A large amount of poison was eliminated. A foul smell filled Xiaoye's body. Her originally white skin turned black. The filth was unbearable. The power of desolation changed the impurities in her body. It even changed some of the impurities in her body. Perhaps Xiaoye had profited from this disaster. Otherwise, when she was awake, she wouldn't have let Yi Qinghan bang her. Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing that her body was covered in poison, he tore her clothes and threw her naked body into the pool. Gurgle, pfff, cough. Cough. Xiaoye was awakened by the cold water in the pool. She swallowed a mouthful of water and spat it out. She rushed out of the pool and cursed, "You bastard, you bullied me again. I'm going to tell my master to beat you to death, you bastard." Yi Qinghan stared at her perfect body and laughed evilly. Only then did Xiaoye react. She screamed and immediately retreated to the bottom of the lake. However, what could the clear lake water hide? Her body was still in full view. Perhaps it would be more charming if she was half covered. Shoo! Yi Qinghan gestured with his hand and said innocently, "You were poisoned. I risked my life to save you. There's too much poison on your body. If you don't wash it off in time, the poison will attack your heart again. I had no choice but to strip you naked. If you didn't run out of the water yourself, I wouldn't have seen it." Xiaoye looked up into the sky and sighed in despair. Her innocence had been completely destroyed by this despicable master of hers. However, it was at this point that a snake as thick as an arm emerged from the waterfall, scaring Xiaoye so much that she jumped 3 meters into the air and landed on Yi Qinghan's body. She screamed and screamed, goosebumps rising all over her skin. In this life, she feared nothing but venomous snakes. As soon as she saw one, she felt weak and powerless. She even forgot that she was a powerful paramount god. Yi Qinghan wrapped his arms around his waist and flicked his finger, sending a stream of energy into the snake's head. Then he waved his hand and sent it flying out of the pool. "You're a peak paramount god. Do you really have to go to such lengths over a snake?" he said. "I'm most afraid of snakes. They're so soft. Just looking at them makes me sick. It's all that old bastard's fault. He used to scare me every day when I was little. Now I'm suffering from the after effects. How long are you going to stay in my arms? As long as you want. I don't have a problem with that. It's quite comfortable. Yi Qinghan said in a perverted manner. Shameless. Whoosh. Xiaoye quickly jumped out of his arms, then pulled out a set of clothing from her ring of cosmos and put it on. She was wearing the same cold, black clothing that made her look like an assassin. TSK, Yi Qinghan said, shaking his head. Such clothing isn't suitable for a pretty girl like you. It's none of your business. Xiaoye was still angry, so she ignored Yi Qinghan and sat down cross-legged to heal herself. Yi Qinghan smiled wryly and shook his head. He looked around at the mountain range, which seemed to stretch as far as the eye could see. It was deathly quiet, and there seemed to be very few living creatures. However, they were all very powerful. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Perhaps he had never been here in his previous life. Where are we? I don't know. How do we get back? I don't know. Then aren't we going to spend the rest of our lives together here? In your dreams. Don't bother me. Yi Qinghan shrugged. They couldn't even reach the Realm Lord's consciousness, so if they wanted to fly back with just the two of them, it would probably take forever. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The stream flowed downwards. The sky was dark, and the stars were hidden. There were no special signs, and they couldn't even differentiate between north, south, east, and west. Fortunately, Marshal Yun was tricked by me. It will probably take him a few decades to recover. It should be enough time for me to go back. Yi Qinghan leaned against a rock beside the stream. The night wind blew his black hair, and his clothes fluttered. He was very bored, so he sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Time flew by, and the sun was overhead. After a while, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. He saw that Xiaoye's complexion was slightly better, but it would take at least 10 years for her to completely recover. Wake up, let's look for a way out while recovering. Yi Qinghan said softly. Where is this place? Xiaoye stood up and looked around in confusion. She suspected that she had left Snow Country and the Divine World. How would I know? I've never been to this place before. Aren't you good at divination? Can you tell where this is? Yi Qinghan mocked. It's all your fault. If you hadn't run in, I would have already returned to the headquarters. Xiaoye reprimanded angrily. Yi Qinghan grinned coldly. He stared at Xiaoye and said hoarsely, It seems that your master didn't teach you how to serve your master. Xiaoye's mouth twitched. She was living under someone else's roof, so she could only compromise. Yi Qinghan sighed. He didn't feel the slightest sense of familiarity in this vast world. Perhaps there was another place here, but as time passed and the world changed, he couldn't tell where this place was. The Nine Worlds Heaven. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He recalled how the Nine Worlds Heaven looked like in the past. Other than the places occupied by humans, most of the places were dead. There weren't many resources or spiritual energy, so it wasn't worth it for humans to invade. This seemed to be one of those places. Moreover, the creatures here were either covered in poisonous gas or were vicious and overbearing. There wasn't anything on them that was worth using. Let's walk in the direction of the sun. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment. He grabbed Xiaoye with his big hand and used the Realm Lord's consciousness. In an instant, they teleported thousands of miles. Their speed was even more terrifying than Xiaoye's peak Realm Lord. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. She asked in disbelief, You're the soul of a Realm Lord? Chapter 13:16. You're the soul of a Sector Lord. Xiaoye was innocent, but that didn't mean she was stupid. To be able to move so far in one go, far beyond her divine sense. This divine sense was even more terrifying than a fake sector lord. What else could it be but a sector lord? That's right. Yi Qinghan replied indifferently as he teleported with her. You're the incarnation of a supreme sector lord? Xiaoye asked in shock. That's right. Yi Qinghan replied calmly. Which sector lord are you? You actually have the time to play around. Xiaoye's interest was piqued. Submitting to a weakling or submitting to a supreme existence were two different things. Take a guess. Shua shua shua. The two teleported as their divine power swept across the land and retracted into their spiritual dimension. After 3 months of teleportation, they were still on their way. However, the sacred city was turned upside down. The marshal of the left was missing, Marshal Yun was in seclusion, and so was the emperor. Without a leader, the princes rose up one after another, wanting to fight for power. The left marshal wasn't here, but the people didn't leave. Many of them were Yi Qinghan's trusted aides. Most of them came from the primal chaos world and were young elites with powerful cultivation. With the support of large amounts of resources, they could quickly reach the supreme god realm. Thus, the left martial residence was still the most important step in the fight for the throne. The 4th and 6th princes had entered the climax of the fight for the throne. Divine Sect and Wang family had also started fighting. At the crucial moment, the left martial residence remained silent and didn't help either side. They all said that they would wait for the left marshal's return before making a decision. The most anxious one was Xue Fei. The imperial edict was still in Yi Qinghan's hands, but he had disappeared at the crucial moment. The 9th prince's relatives had been killed, so he could only rely on Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Xue Wuhan also had thoughts and found Zhu Wuxin, hoping that he could help him fight for the throne. Zhu Wuxin Chen was silent for a while. He looked at Consort Yu and said in a low voice, I need to think about this matter. 18th prince only has the Snow Scar army, which is only about 10,000 people. They are still far away in the frontier and can't play any role in the fight for the throne. Even if I am willing to help you, it won't be of much help. Now we can only see what the left marshal's mansion wants to do. I suggest you don't act recklessly, or you will be killed. Yu Fei smiled bitterly. Mr. Zhuo won't help us. Traceless can only rely on you now. Mr. Zhuo is not an ungrateful person. He has stated that he doesn't support you, but he is protecting you. You don't have any relatives, so you don't have strong support. He can only rely on himself to win over and nurture his own forces. This way, he won't be opposed by the other princes. I don't believe he will support the other princes until the very end. Zhu Wuxin said. The wisdom of a military saint was definitely not ordinary. Yi Qinghan did not tell Zhu Wuxin any plan because he did not believe it and did not want to take the risk, but he had guessed most of it. Yu Fei's eyes brightened. Hearing Zhu Wuxin's words, her heart was full of anticipation and nervousness. Yu Fei left the marshal's residence and followed his plan. She did not fight in the palace, as if she had given up on fighting for the throne. Xue Wuhan also accompanied Yu Fei with peace of mind. He did nothing but wait quietly. The 6th prince, accompanied by Wang Longtao, acted swiftly and decisively. He began to fight back against the 4th prince's forces. The two forces engaged in intense assassinations. The Lord of Hell disappeared, heaven took the lead. The people of Yantian Pavilion also began to become active. Many officials died tragically in their homes. They died with a smile on their faces, which was horrifying. In the marshal's residence, Gu Qingyu returned from the military department and took charge of the residence. With Nangong Yunlan as his assistant, he secretly developed his forces and took advantage of the situation. A large number of empty official positions appeared. Everyone wanted to fight for them. The marshal's residence had strong connections and support, so they occupied more than half of the official positions. The more the two powerful princes fought, the fewer their forces were. Their trusted forces were mostly taken by the other side, while their replacements were taken by the marshal's residents. However, the sixth prince was not worried. The marshal's residents' forces were his own strength. The marshal was the sixth prince's cousin-in-law. The fourth prince was anxious. Yi Qinghan and divine sect were fighting again. He could not count on the marshal's residents. He could only forcefully destroy the sixth prince's forces. Only then would the marshal's residents lean towards him. While the marshal is not here, fifth uncle is in seclusion. Counterattack and uproot the sixth prince's forces. Even if both sides suffer losses, if we can get rid of the sixth prince, think of a way to get rid of him once and for all. The fourth prince looked at his guest and said coldly. We can find someone to disguise as Zhuofeng and appear somewhere. The sixth prince might go and greet him. We can find a chance to kill him and then shift the blame to Zhuofeng. The marshal's residents' forces will definitely collapse and the throne will definitely be your highness's. An old man suggested in a low voice. Killing two birds with one stone. Although the plan was not new, it was vicious enough. The fourth prince's eyes flashed and he nodded in agreement. He said coldly, I'll leave this matter to you. If you do it well, you'll be heavily rewarded. The sixth prince's side was also discussing how to defeat the fourth prince. Right now, only the two of them could contend against the fourth prince. They both had powerful relatives and enough officials to support them. Once they defeated the fourth prince, they would succeed. The Saint City was unstable and unstable. At this time, there were no neutral parties. At this crucial moment, whoever did not take action would definitely be dealt with in the future. As for the marshal's residents, since the marshal wasn't here, they had no choice but to remain neutral. 3 days later, a shocking news came from the Saint City. The marshal's residence appeared in the Wind Sea region and was heavily injured. A rumor full of flaws was flying around. Even the marshal's residence was surprised. Yi Qinghan disappeared with the Lord of Hell. Facing the Lord of Hell, it was completely possible for him to be heavily injured. The sixth prince immediately decided to go to the Wind Sea region. This was the best time to show goodwill, but Wang Longtao firmly opposed. If they left the Saint City at this time, wouldn't they be giving others a chance? Now that the left marshal is seriously injured, if I save him, he will definitely thank me. The left marshal's mansion will also have an owner. When the time comes, the left marshal's mansion will move and give the holy city to fourth brother, so what? I can still make a comeback. Xue Xian was incomparably excited. He was determined to not give others a chance to refuse. Right at this moment, within the fourth prince's estate, the fourth prince led a group of experts out of the holy city. It seemed as though they were also going to search for Yi Qinghan. This made Xue Xian even more certain of his decision. He only took Wang Longtao and his 3 over-god guards with him as he left the holy city. In the marshal's residence, Gu Qingyu and the others secretly frowned. They were somewhat suspicious of the authenticity of this news. If it was true, Yi Qinghan would have contacted them. Instead, they would have discovered his whereabouts. The divine bird wretchedly stretched and rolled his eyes. A bunch of idiots. Do I look like I'm dispirited? If I look so energetic, it can only mean that he's living well. How could he be injured? Only then did everyone realize that the sixth prince had been tricked. At this time, Wang Yuqing played a key role in informing the Wang family. Wang Longtao was also by the sixth prince's side. How could they let anything happen to them? Immediately, they sent a large number of experts to the Wind Sea region. Chapter 13-17. At this moment, Yi Qinghan and Xiaoye were speeding through this barren area. When they were tired, they would rest and chat along the way, so they didn't feel bored. However, they didn't know that the holy city had undergone earth-shattering changes. Holy City, within the imperial palace. The emperor's injuries were worsening and his life force was fading. He could no longer suppress it and could only come out of seclusion. At this moment, the princes and ministers who were playing tricks in the holy city had no choice but to stop their plans. However, the fourth prince's plan to assassinate the sixth prince and frame Yi Qinghan didn't stop. The emperor's face was deathly pale as if he didn't have any life force left. He sat in the imperial court and discovered that Yi Qinghan and Marshal Yun, the two assistant ministers, weren't present. Only the left martial residence's Gu Qingyu had taken their place. He couldn't help but ask, "Where's Mr. Left Marshal and Marshal Yun?" The fourth prince had only circled around the outer city before returning. His expression changed slightly. He was afraid that the left martial residence would complain. After all, this matter involved the divine sect. However, how could the left martial residence not take advantage of this situation? Gu Qingyu stepped forward and bowed, "Your Majesty, this general is the left martial residence's general." On the day of the left marshal's wedding, he was ambushed by the divine sect and Hell's assassins. Right now, his whereabouts are unknown. Marshal Yun was also heavily injured in the attack and is currently recuperating. The emperor was furious. He was hoping that Yi Qinghan would contribute some more rare treasures. However, he didn't expect that he would be assassinated. Moreover, it was on his wedding day. Just how daring were the divine sect and Hell? Just how little did they care about the divine nation? Bang! The emperor smashed a corner of the dragon throne and said hoarsely, "Could it be that they're bullying me because I'm about to die and can't suppress them? They even dared to kill the assistant minister that I personally appointed. They even dared to kill my own brother. Is there any justice in this world? Men, have the divine sect and Hell's Lord come and give me an explanation. Otherwise, I'll wipe them out while I still have some time." The emperor shouted angrily. Yes. Just as a powerful guard was about to leave, a low voice came from outside the palace. "There's no need for your majesty to summon me. I've come uninvited." The divine lord appeared outside the palace alone. He flashed and entered, appearing in front of the crowd. The divine lord was not angry, and his power was not weaker than the emperor's. He was neither servile nor overbearing. He glanced at the crowd, and no one dared to look him in the eyes. Finally, he fixed his eyes on the emperor and said coldly, "Your Majesty, you want an explanation from me, and I also want an explanation from your Majesty. As long as you can convince me, I will convince your Majesty." The emperor looked at the arrogant divine master's disdainful attitude and was a little angry. He asked in a hoarse voice, "What do you want from me?" Back then, if it weren't for the fact that everyone in divine sect had followed ancestor Wuxiang into battle, how could I have allowed you to strut around and blaspheme the emperor's prestige? Your Majesty, there's no need to be angry. Let me ask you, back then when Lord Ling Yen was roaming the world, did he promise that as long as divine sect behaved, the Snow World Army would not appear in our divine sect's territory? Furthermore, back then when you ascended the throne, did you repeat this promise? The divine master coldly questioned. The emperor's expression froze as he nodded and said, "Yes. I acknowledge this promise." However, Marshal Yun led 1,000,000 Snow World Army elites into our divine sect's territory and captured several hundred of our Snow God sect's elites. He said that he wanted to repeat the Tong family's case and put the false accusation on my head. He even wanted to accuse me of treason. Your Majesty, do you have an explanation for this? The emperor's face turned red, as if he was having a terminal lucidity. At this moment, he was actually speechless. He did not know why Marshal Yun did this. I'll say one more thing. Zhuo Feng allowed his spirit pet to enter our divine sect's territory and steal our sect's snow lotus and a supreme treasure. Zhuo Feng, as an assistant minister, did not return the treasure. Instead, he joined forces with Marshal Yun to attack our divine sect's territory and crippled our head disciples' cultivation. I suspect that they planned this together. I believe that the imperial family would not do such a despicable thing. It was just their private actions. I wanted to take back the snow lotus and supreme treasure to scare Feng. I just wanted to capture him alive and take back the treasure. Is that wrong? But right now, Feng is missing. Our sect's supreme treasure has been taken away by him. His spirit pet is still free and unfettered in the marshal's residence. Now you ask me for an explanation. How am I going to explain this to our ancestors? In the future, how are you going to meet the spirits of our divine sect who died for Snow Empire? The Divine Lord took control of the situation and angrily asked, "Do you want me to ask the Supreme Realm Lord to come out of seclusion and ask Lord Ling Yen to come back and uphold justice?" The hall was silent. No one dared to argue with the Divine Lord. The Emperor also could not answer. "Go and summon Marshal Yun's spirit pet. I want to know the truth." The Emperor powerlessly fell on the dragon throne and said dispiritedly. The divine sect wasn't an ordinary power. In the past, the divine sect had suffered heavy casualties in order to conquer the great wasteland domain. Many elders and grand elders had died because of this. Those who survived didn't live for long before they turned into Tao and died. In order to appease the divine sect, the Supreme Realm Lord had bestowed the Snow Lotus as a form of repayment. Therefore, the Emperor absolutely wouldn't dare to attack the divine sect for no reason. A guard beside the Emperor quickly left the hall and went straight to the Marshal's residence. At this moment, the Divine Bird was proudly teaching Tong Tong and Little Tong how to behave. However, its style was extremely wretched and vulgar. It did not say a word of seriousness. It instilled its own ideas into the two inexperienced children's minds. Remember one sentence. I would rather betray the world than let the world take advantage of me. If we can't beat them, we can run. There is no need to fight with them. Face is for the weak. The strong only know how to slap others' face. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Who knows if I will ride on the Divine Lord's head and peat 30 years later? The Divine Bird said wretchedly. Tong Tong nodded thoughtfully. It was very reasonable. Little Tong did not know anything. The Divine Bird's outlook on life was somewhat distorted. At this moment, the guards in the palace entered the Marshal's residence to summon the Divine Bird for questioning. The Divine Bird was stunned. Knowing that the Divine Lord was in the palace, it suddenly trembled. Can I not go? Go back and tell His Majesty that this Divine Bird was frightened and is now in a coma. Take this spiritual god stone. I will find you a good treasure in a few ************. The Divine Bird said with a smile. The middle-aged guard's forehead was covered in sweat. A black line appeared between his eyebrows. He said in a deep voice, "No. His Majesty has ordered that you must go to the palace and wait for questioning." The Divine Bird was helpless. It said to Tong Tong, "Follow me into the palace and protect me. Do not let the villain hurt me. Remember, once someone attacks, we must not fight. Escape is more important." The guard wiped the sweat off his forehead and stared deeply at the Divine Bird. He did not know what kind of trouble this thing would cause if it entered the palace. The Divine Bird took Tong Tong and followed the guard into the palace. It looked around wretchedly as if it was looking for an escape route. Thank you for your subscription support. Thank you for your great support. Chapter 13:18. The hall was completely silent. Even breathing had stopped. They could only wait for the Divine Bird to come out and explain the situation. The Divine Lord clenched his fists. He wanted to stew the Divine Bird. At this moment, the Divine Bird perched on Tong Tong's shoulder and followed the guard in. Move aside. Don't let that bastard sneak attack you. The Divine Bird whispered to Tong Tong. The bastard it mentioned was naturally the Divine Lord. Although its voice was soft, everyone in the hall heard it clearly. The Divine Lord's face turned green with anger. He glared at the divine bird. Tong Tong knew she was no match for the divine lord. She subconsciously ran to Gu Qingyu's side. The emperor looked at the perverted divine bird and Tong Tong and frowned. He was somewhat displeased. Your Majesty is in good health. There seems to be a divine glow between your brows. You must have a good fortune today. Perhaps you can break the shackles and live forever. The divine bird flew to the emperor and knelt down. It was very perverted. The emperor's old face was stunned. He loved to hear such words. No one wanted to die, let alone him. He was the ruler of the world. Oh. You know fortune-telling? Is that true? The emperor quickly asked. Of course. This divine bird is known as the divine bird. I know a thing or two about everything, especially physiognomy. Recently, the stars have rotated and strange phenomena have appeared. Looking at the divine light between your Majesty's eyebrows, I can't be wrong. Your Majesty must have had an opportunity recently. The divine bird replied proudly. The emperor was overjoyed. Could it be that the divine bird was right? There was still a chance. The divine lord flew into a rage. He coldly glanced at the divine bird and said sternly, Your Majesty, shouldn't you be investigating the case now? The emperor was delighted and in a much better mood. He naturally sided with the divine bird. However, in order to appease the divine lord, he had to symbolically ask, Divine bird, the sect leader of the divine sect just accused you of stealing 2 treasures. Is that true? How can it be stealing? I only went to take back something that didn't belong to the divine sect. Also, Your Majesty, you must understand my sincerity. I took the supreme snow lotus to heal you. However, before my master returned to the sacred city, he was harmed by those bastards from the divine sect. I don't know whether he is alive or dead. We are loyal and devoted to Your Majesty. You must uphold justice for us. The divine bird said aggrievedly. Caw caw caw. The divine master almost couldn't control himself. No matter how good his temper was, he couldn't lose his temper in front of a divine bird. The emperor did not understand the divine bird, but seeing how aggrieved and serious the divine bird looked, coupled with the fact that Yi Qinghan had given away so many rare treasures, he had every reason to believe the divine bird's words. Therefore, he believed it without a doubt. What is the other treasure? The emperor asked curiously. When the divine bird heard this, it immediately said righteously, Speaking of the other thing, if Your Majesty knew about it, you would definitely be angry. It's better not to talk about it. Take care of yourself. It's all right. Today, I must make things clear. I have never wronged anyone in my life, and I don't want to lose my reputation at the last moment. The emperor said in a deep voice. Plop. The divine bird directly knelt down, spread its wings on the ground, and wailed in tears, Your Majesty, you have to seek justice for us. The last treasure is actually a bone from the child behind me. In order to obtain it, the divine sect attacked the Tong family at night, slaughtered the entire family, broke one of Tong Tong's ribs, and hung his 7-year-old body in a pile of filthy blood and bones. The divine sect is simply inhumane. They even framed the Tong family as traitors and deceived Your Majesty. Such a sect doesn't care about Your Majesty at all. The emperor frowned and asked coldly, Is this true? Who can prove it? Tong Tong can prove it, because he was the person involved. When he died a tragic death, his resentment was too strong and he turned into a dead spirit. In the end, he was converted by my lord. Marshal Zhua. He used the firmament to turn into a golden body and my lord's flesh and blood to be reborn. If you don't believe me, you can ask that bastard if the second treasure is a bone. If it wasn't for that bone, why would the divine sect cross the continent to slaughter the Tong family and even accuse them of traitors? Even if they were traitors, they could have reported it to His Majesty and let His Majesty deal with it personally. However, they didn't. They only accused them of a crime after the massacre. If it wasn't for the bone, then what else could it be? The divine bird took the initiative and attacked aggressively, forcing the divine master to be speechless. You're full of nonsense. What's the use of a bone? It's not the bone of a supreme being. The second treasure that my sect lost is the Snow God's Codex. The divine master coldly argued. Sigh, don't accuse me wrongly. What bullshit Snow God's Codex? I've never seen it before. The divine bird immediately got up and glared at the divine master. You know very well whether you've seen it or not. You're just a feathered animal. Don't think that you're human just because you can speak human language without transforming. Let me tell you, if you don't hand over the Snow God's Codex and the Snow God's Codex today, I'll crush all the bones in your body. The divine master coldly threatened. Oh. I'm so scared. You dare to threaten the kind and loyal divine bird in front of His Majesty? What are your intentions? Could it be that you're the real traitor? Do you want His Majesty to fall so that you can support the fourth prince and take control of the divine nation? The divine bird righteously questioned. This accusation was so strong that even the ministers in the hall stood on the divine bird's side. Gu Qingyu and Tong Tong subconsciously protected the divine bird, standing between it and the divine master. At this moment, the emperor gestured with his hand. Divine bird, come to my side. As long as you're telling the truth, no one can do anything to you. Attacking you is the same as attacking me. When the divine master saw the emperor protecting the divine bird, he was so angry that his whole body trembled. The icy flames in his eyes solidified as he stared at the divine bird. The divine bird turned its butt and arrogantly looked back at the divine master. It was extremely wretched. Then, it jumped up and ran to the emperor's shoulder. The emperor was old and weathered. His face was full of wrinkles, and the aura of death pervaded the air. His vitality was greatly depleted. If it wasn't for his last will, he would have died long ago. Even the ultimate powerhouses would die. In the face of reincarnation, they were still powerless. No one could be immortal, and no one could live forever. Even the realm master could only stay in seclusion for so long due to his injuries, let alone him. As soon as the divine bird touched the emperor, it felt that the blood in his body had lost its vitality. It knew that there was a problem with his life force. Once there was a problem with the life force of an ultimate powerhouse, there was nothing that could replace it. It was almost impossible to repair it. Your Majesty, you've overworked yourself for the divine nation, and your life force is somewhat damaged. You mustn't be angry and hurt your vitality. However, your lucky star is coming. Your Majesty still has a chance to turn things around. I guess your lucky star must be my master. The divine bird lied. Yes. The emperor naturally understood his injuries. He didn't expect a parrot to be so smart. It could sense the problem just by touching him, and it could even say that there was a chance to turn things around. Sect Master Shui, you said that the divine bird stole the divine sect's snow god cannon. Do you have evidence? The emperor asked in a deep voice. The divine master frowned. Seeing that the emperor was obviously siding with the divine bird, he was a little angry. He said coldly, the entire divine sect is a witness. It stole the divine sect's treasure. Zhuo Feng and Marshal Shui led the snow army into the territory to take it away. Your Majesty still asks me for evidence. Don't you think it's ridiculous? I didn't steal it. I'm just framing you. This divine bird forgives you. However, your Majesty is mentally exhausted and needs to rest. Not only are you inconsiderate, you're also aggressive. You obviously want your Majesty to die sooner. You're a despicable traitor. This divine bird will never forgive you. The divine bird scolded righteously. Chapter 13:19. The divine bird spoke in a righteous manner, making it impossible for anyone to defend themselves. The Divine Lord's breathing became hurried, and he almost couldn't hold it in any longer. This old monster had lived for countless years, so what had he not seen before? What had he not experienced before? Usually, his emotions wouldn't fluctuate too much, but today, his veins were bulging and he couldn't control himself. Huff, 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 the entire hall could hear the Divine Master's rapid breathing. Many people's mouths twitched. They didn't expect the Divine Master to be pushed to such a state by a bird. Every word was extremely vicious. Seeing the Divine Master speechless, the Divine Bird raised his head and said, "Not only will I not forgive you, but the whole world will not forgive a despicable traitor. Since it's your first offense, His Majesty is merciful. As long as you apologize, His Majesty won't lower himself to your level." Crack! The Divine Master clenched his fists and glared at the Divine Bird and the Emperor. He shouted hoarsely, "Nonsense! I've always served the Snow Nation and the realm of the gods. How could I be a traitor? Bastard, if you dare to speak nonsense again, I'll kill you immediately. Look, look! This bastard wants to kill me in front of His Majesty. Do you think you can scare His Majesty by killing me? Do you think you can shut the mouths of the whole world just because you're powerful? Your Snow God sect slaughtered the Tong family first, then deceived His Majesty, and now you're blaspheming His Majesty. You'll be punished by the heavens, bastard." The Divine Bird said seriously. "You fucking curse me again." The Divine Lord roared. "Bastard, bastard." The Divine Bird cursed. "Damn it, this is the first time I've seen such a despicable person begging me to curse. How despicable can he be?" Cough, cough, cough. The Divine Master's face was pale. He was already injured, and now he was so angry that his chi and blood became unstable. He coughed up blood. The Emperor had long been displeased with the Divine Sect's arrogance and despotism. Seeing that the Divine Bird had angered the Divine Master, he was secretly delighted. Furthermore, the Divine Bird had said that there were still opportunities waiting for him. His face turned red and a faint smile appeared on his face. The Divine Master staggered and took a step back. His eyes were burning with anger. He said hoarsely, "Your Majesty, are you going to let a feathered beast run wild in the palace? You bitch, what do you want? You were the one who asked me to scold you. I scolded you and you got angry. I didn't scold you and I didn't give you any face. You got angry. What the hell do you want? Say it. Don't hold it in. I won't change anyway. This Divine Bird is used to being arrogant. I like to do things my own way." The Divine Bird said disdainfully. Poof! The Divine Lord couldn't catch his breath. He spat out a mouthful of blood and took a deep breath. His face was extremely pale. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, everyone looked at the Divine Master, who was panting heavily, and found him rather pitiful. Tong Tong grinned, as if verbally taking advantage of this bastard was more satisfying than beating him to death. It was better to infuriate someone than to kill them. Let them suffer a fate worse than death. All right. Stop arguing. I'm here today to hear the case, not to listen to you argue. The Emperor's lips curled into a smile as he spoke faintly. What's there to judge? This feathered beast stole the Divine Sect's heirloom treasure. Your Majesty, you have to give the Divine Sect an explanation. Don't disappoint the ancestors of the Divine Sect. The Divine Lord said angrily. Divine Bird, what do you say? The Emperor turned to look at the Divine Bird, who was lying lazily with his legs in the air, and couldn't help but ask with a smile. I didn't steal it. This Divine Bird is a wise Almighty. How could I do something as petty as stealing? The Divine Bird rolled his eyes and replied. Everyone in the hall looked at the Divine Bird's expression, and their mouths twitched. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. It was difficult for them to hold it in. Then how do you explain the Supreme Snow Lotus? Did it fly into your hands of its own accord? The Divine Lord asked angrily. The Divine Bird rolled his eyes and said fearlessly, I picked it up and left it there. It's free, so why wouldn't I take it? The Divine Lord was furious. His veins were bulging, and the divine power in his body was going out of control. Whoosh! The two strongest guards beside the Emperor stepped forward indifferently and drew their swords. All right. I admit that I stole it, okay? Don't be angry. You're already so old, but why is your state of mind so bad? You're so angry that you're sick. Others will say that I don't respect my elders. The Divine Bird sighed and tried to persuade him seriously. Think about it this way. This Supreme Snow Lotus is the only divine medicine that can save His Majesty now. You won't leave him to die, right? The Divine Lord rolled his eyes. He was extremely angry. The divine power in his body was surging, and he was in danger of going berserk at any time. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. If he didn't vent it out, there might be repercussions. The Divine Bird saw the Divine Lord's expression and sat up in an exaggerated manner. He stood up with his two little claws and moved back. He asked in disbelief, do you want to see His Majesty die, but you're not willing to give him an external object to save his life? You're so vicious. The Divine Lord spat out another mouthful of blood. He was about to lose control. At this moment, the fourth prince stood up and said coldly, when did the Divine Lord say that he's not willing to use the Supreme Snow Lotus to save Father? Previously, he was prepared to take out the Supreme Snow Lotus to save Imperial Father. However, before he could do so, you disrupted his plan. Now that Marshal Zhua has disappeared, I suspect that he took the Supreme Snow Lotus with him. He doesn't want to save Imperial Father. Your Highness, Fourth Prince, you're already so old. Why is your IQ so low? Why did my master go missing? He went missing because the divine sect contacted the Lord of Hell to assassinate him. If it weren't for you guys messing around, we would have returned to the sacred city long ago. His Majesty might have already started to recover. Are you waiting for His Majesty to die so that you can take the opportunity to ascend the throne? The Divine Bird asked angrily. The fourth prince was rendered speechless by these words, and his hair stood up in anger. Nonsense. My father is my father. How could I possibly watch him disintegrate into the Tao? The fourth prince retorted angrily. You're lying through your teeth. My master searched everywhere for treasures for His Majesty. But what did you do? You stopped him, assassinated him, and now you're slandering my master. His Majesty is wise. He can tell who's loyal and who's treacherous. The Divine Bird's words made the fourth prince's face turn green. Looking at the Emperor's cold eyes, he knelt down in fear. Father, I'm loyal. I have no intention of harming you. I didn't know that the Marshal Zhuo was attacked. I also hoped that the Supreme Snow Lotus could be brought back to save Father. That's why I advised Grandfather to stop harassing the Marshal Zhuo. But the Marshal Zhuo ran to the Wang family and got married. Grandfather was afraid of wasting time, so he attacked. He hoped to bring back the Supreme Snow Lotus and give it to you. I beg of you. The fourth prince knelt down and quickly said. Come on. My master brought the sixth prince and was chased everywhere. In order to protect the Supreme Snow Lotus, he had no choice but to hide in the Wang family. In the name of marriage, he allied with Marshal Zhuo, hoping to send the Snow Lotus back. But the wedding turned into a funeral. This was all planned by you guys. The Divine Bird didn't panic in the face of danger. No matter what accusations were made, he threw the blame on others. Chapter 1320. The hall was in an uproar. The Divine Bird was fighting a group of heroes by itself. The guests and divine masters under the fourth prince were actually no match for it. In short, the Divine Bird only knew one thing. If they didn't hand over the supreme snow lotus, they would be betraying their realm. Everything else would be denied. If they didn't agree, they would change the topic. The emperor smiled as he watched the divine masters suffer. He was in a good mood. The divine masters had been protecting the divine bird, so he couldn't do anything about it. In the end, he could only say that he would settle the score with the left marshal before leaving. However, 3 days later, a fierce battle broke out in Wind Ocean Province. The sixth prince was ambushed and his spiritual space was shattered. The Wang family suffered heavy losses, but hundreds of assassins were also killed. The casualties were heavy. The emperor was so angry that he spat out blood and fell unconscious. Now, the fourth prince was the only prince left. Xue Wuhan didn't have any relatives to support him. He only had the Snow Scar army. Zhu Wuxin didn't say anything. The left martial residence didn't have a leader. All the overlords were talking about it. As the saying goes, a country can't be without a leader. The world can't be without a ruler. The fourth prince was strong and wanted to take control. The divine masters wanted to force the ministers to submit. The hall was dead silent. The fourth prince looked coldly at the ministers and the city lords. He said coldly, "Father is in a coma and can die at any time. Do you still want to fight with me?" The ministers didn't dare to act recklessly without an imperial edict. They could only look at Gu Qingyu in the direction of the left martial residence, hoping that he could be stronger. However, Gu Qingyu didn't know the details of Yi Qinghan's real plan. But he was sure that the person he was assisting wasn't the fourth prince. At this moment, Marshal Yun walked in with the help of 2 generals. His face was pale and lifeless. It could be seen that his injuries weren't light. His Majesty has an imperial edict, but it's in the hands of the left marshal. I don't know who His Majesty appointed as the crown prince. Now, we should find the left marshal and take back the imperial edict to decide who will take the throne. Marshal Yun said in a deep voice. A country can't be without a leader. If the left marshal doesn't come back, the Snow Country and the Divine Realm won't appoint a ruler. The fourth prince asked. I'm still an assistant minister. I'm not dead yet. Who said that a country can't be without a leader? Marshal Yun asked coldly. The God Lord grinned coldly. He looked at Marshal Yun as if he was looking at a dead man, his murderous intent rising. From today onwards, I will no longer cultivate in seclusion. If you have something to say, please report it to me. If not, you may leave. Marshal Yun said tiredly. Zhu Wuxin coldly looked at the ministers. He knew that they all had their own agendas. He also knew that the monarch in Marshal Xue's heart was definitely not the fourth prince. Moreover, the fourth prince was cold and sinister, while the divine sect was strong. Once the throne fell into the fourth prince's hands, these ministers who were not under the fourth prince's influence would definitely be dealt with. I support the 18th prince's ascension to the throne. I believe that the person Marshal Xue is truly assisting is Her Highness the 18th prince. Zhu Wuxin suddenly walked out and forcefully stated his thoughts. Xue Wuhan was overjoyed. With Zhu Wuxin's strong support, he would definitely gain the support of the other ministers. Sure enough, there was a huge uproar in the main hall. Everyone began to discuss spiritedly. Even Gu Qingyu was a bit shaken. He thought to himself, could it be that Qinghan is also secretly helping Xue Wuhan? If that's the case, wouldn't I be ruining his grand plan if I object now? Just as Gu Qingyu was wavering, 2 imperial concubines walked into the hall. They were the 4th prince's mother, imperial concubine Lian, and the 9th prince's mother, imperial concubine Xue. Since His Majesty has a posthumous edict, we will naturally follow His Majesty's wishes. You are all foreign ministers. The ascension to the throne is a matter of the imperial family. Marshal Zhu, aren't you interfering too much? Imperial concubine Xue coldly said. That's right. I think so too. Since it's a family matter, naturally the imperial family will vote on it. As for the imperial edict in Marshal Xue's hands, who knows if it's real or fake? Even if it's real, how do we know if Marshal Xue isn't lying to His Majesty, and has His Majesty appoint a crown prince in a moment of confusion? Imperial concubine Lian, on the other hand, looked down on the ministers. Sister Lian, are you saying that His Majesty is confused? As a peak god expert, no matter how injured he is, it shouldn't affect His Majesty's wisdom. His Majesty has just fainted, yet you are slandering His Majesty and injuring an important minister like Marshal Xue. Aren't you hurting the ministers' hearts? Imperial concubine Xue solemnly questioned. Imperial concubine Xue naturally knew who the crown prince in the imperial edict was. She also knew that the imperial edict couldn't be fake. Thus, she naturally supported the ninth prince and wanted to delay until Yi Qinghan returned. Imperial concubine Lian couldn't refute Imperial concubine Xue's aggressive tone. She couldn't help but coldly snort. Then you should find Marshal Xue and the imperial edict to convince the world. Imperial concubine Xue faintly smiled and calmly said, although Marshal Xue isn't here, as his spirit pet, the divine bird, it naturally knows the contents of the imperial edict. I believe that it wouldn't dare to speak nonsense about the imperial edict. Summon the divine bird, and it will naturally know the contents of the imperial edict. What a joke! How can we let a feathered animal make the decision for a national matter? The divine master angrily rebuked. The one making the decision is not the divine bird, but His Majesty. Sir Divine Master, please speak more politely. The divine bird is only here to announce the edict, Imperial concubine Xue solemnly said. This old man agrees with Imperial concubine Xue's proposal. I wonder what General Gu of Marshal Xue's mansion thinks. Marshal Xue asked in a deep voice. For a moment, Gu Qingyu forgot that the divine bird was still in the holy city. He quickly said, Marshal Xue, this general agrees with asking the divine bird's opinion. It should know what Marshal Xue's thoughts are. The divine master's expression slightly changed. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. However, he could only act in secret. He didn't dare to kill a minister in public. Marshal Xue nodded. The guards quickly rushed to Marshal Xue's mansion. The divine bird sat on the commander's seat with an aloof appearance. It looked down at the guards and said in a dignified manner, Who is it? What business do you have with this seat? The guards in the palace knew how terrifying the divine bird's sharp tongue was. They didn't bicker with it and told it the purpose of their visit. The divine bird's eyes flashed. It didn't expect that the matter of His Majesty's ascension to the throne would be decided by itself. Ga. Tong Tong, come with me to the palace to show off. The divine bird suddenly became spirited. Its laziness disappeared and it directly flew up from the chair. This time, all the hidden experts of Marshal Xue's mansion came out. This was an important matter of assisting His Majesty's ascension to the throne. Something was bound to happen in the palace. They didn't want the divine bird to be in danger. Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng and the others all came out. The army appeared not far from the holy city. The divine bird appeared in a dazzling manner accompanied by everyone. It looked at the divine master who looked like he wanted to eat it. It smiled and said, Yo, who is this? Why is your face green? Humph. The divine master coldly snorted. He decided to kill the Marshal Xue's mansion tonight. He would capture the divine bird and torture it to death. Marshal Xue shook his head. It wasn't a good thing to anger the divine master at this time. It would only make him fight to the death. Chapter 1321. Inside the hall, everyone looked at the divine bird with eager eyes. Imperial concubine Xue was the most expectant. She asked gently, Divine bird, you are the spirit pet of Marshal Xue. You must know that he has an imperial edict. Of course. I talked to him about everything. I know everything about him. Everything. The divine bird said wretchedly, emphasizing the word everything. He knew that Imperial concubine Shui was kneeling and licking his boots. Imperial concubine Shui's face turned red, but she quickly hid it. She said sternly, Divine bird, please tell the world about the imperial edict. It involves the orthodoxy of the world. You must not lie. Otherwise, even Mr. will not be able to protect you. The divine bird curled his lips and thought, little slut, why are you pretending to be pure? You even dare to threaten this divine bird. Marshal Shui was exhausted and his injuries were getting worse. He did not want to waste any more time, so he said, Divine bird, tell us about the imperial edict. Your words and actions represent Marshal Shui. Do not tarnish his reputation. The divine bird stood on Tong Tong's shoulder and said proudly, this divine bird's reputation is no worse than my master's. Don't make me sound so unbearable. Fine, since you need it so much, I will tell you. In fact, the imperial edict was written when His Majesty first came out of seclusion and announced my master to enter the inner palace. His Majesty's personal bodyguard can testify that the crown prince is the 9th prince. Impossible. His Majesty has already grounded the 9th prince. How can he still make him the crown prince? You lowly bird, you must pay for your nonsense. The 4th prince and the 7th prince roared at the same time. This divine bird swears on my honor that if I lie, I will be struck by lightning. The divine bird said solemnly. The 9th prince was stunned. He did not expect that Yi Qinghan would protect him in the end. He had even found someone to assassinate him. He was surprised and happy and did not know what to do. He looked at Imperial concubine Shui and found that she already knew. He knew that Imperial concubine Shui was working hard. This old man does not believe it. Wait for Zhuofeng to come back and show us the imperial edict. Only when His Majesty wakes up can he make another crown prince. Otherwise, the royal family should vote together. Letting a lowly bird announce the throne of an empire, this is the biggest joke in the world. The Divine Lord interrupted the divine bird angrily. He wanted to stall for time. Today, he would wipe out the Zhuo Marshal's mansion and kill Marshal Yun. Then, the ministers would have no leader and could only assist the 4th prince. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. If you don't believe it, then so be it. Anyway, I'm back. The divine bird raised its head and said disdainfully. Since you don't believe me, then let's not talk about the throne for now. Before the return of the left marshal, I am still an assistant minister. You must listen to me in everything. The court is dismissed. Farewell, Marshal Yun. The ministers bowed and sent Marshal Snow off. Inside the hall, Gu Qingyu and the others also quickly left. Once the court session ended, a faint murderous aura emanated from the sacred city. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the rolling pressure made it difficult for people to breathe. The Divine Lord looked up at the sky with a sinister smile. Those who obey me will be sacrificed to the gods. Those who defy me will have their entire family slaughtered. Marshal Yun, the first will start with you. Zhuo Shuifu, you are the second. Your forces will be uprooted tonight. A large group of black-clothed men appeared in the sacred city and quickly disappeared from the major streets. As night fell, the Forbidden Army and the city guards were all mobilized. The patrol frequency increased several times. There were 1,000 soldiers patrolling each mansion. As if they had sensed the sinister murderous aura, the major mansions also mobilized experts to strengthen the patrol. An elite troop appeared in Zhuo Shuifu. The experts of the Forbidden Army were all gathered here. A border army also appeared in Marshal Yun's mansion. Obviously, they were there to guard against assassinations. However, the Divine Lord was a powerful expert. If he really wanted to assassinate someone, not many people could resist. However, the Divine Lord was not the only one who was taking action tonight. The Heavenly Lord appeared beside the Divine Lord. He was dressed in black and had a tall and straight body. He wore a mask and held a short sword in his hand. Tonight, I want a river of blood to flow in the sacred city. Those who obey me will prosper and those who defy me will die. This is the list. Except for Zhou Shuifu and Marshal Yun's mansion, I will personally take care of the others. The Divine Lord said in a deep voice. The Heavenly Lord looked at the list. They were all city lords and important ministers of the country. Once they were all killed, the entire empire would collapse. If the emperor had not fainted, he would not have dared to take action against these people. Give me half of what I want first. Give me the other half when you are done, the Heavenly Lord said in a deep voice. Take it and count it yourself, the Divine Lord said indifferently. Is there anything else you want to tell me? If not, I will take action. The Heavenly Lord remembered all the names and put them away. Are you interested in wiping out hell and making heaven the only assassin organization? The Divine Lord asked in a low voice. Ha ha ha, I will not interfere with your grudges. Even if I wipe out hell, there is still the Yantian Pavilion. The world is so big that it can be divided into 3 parts. If anything happens, I can make them the scapegoat. The Heavenly Lord laughed and left. Obviously, he knew that the Divine Lord had been tricked by the Hell Lord into giving him a pseudo-world weapon material. He did not want to be fooled and used as a tool. After the Heavenly Lord disappeared, after dawn, the entire sacred city began to bleed. Killing intent filled the sky. However, the outside world did not know. They were all patrolling outside the Master's room. They did not know that the Master had been dead for a long time. The Divine Lord appeared in Marshal Snow's residence. The outside of the residence was tightly surrounded by the army. There were close to 10,000 strong cultivators. Even a mosquito could not fly in. There were more than 10 supreme gods in the army guarding the space. The defense was even stricter than the left marshal's residence. It was almost impossible for the Divine Lord to assassinate Marshal Snow quietly. Marshal Snow was not staying in the main palace. He was staying in a private room beside a lake with a bodyguard. There were no maids coming in or out. No one would suspect that he was staying there. The Divine Lord took out a human mask from his yin and yang ring and put it on his face. It was exactly the same as Yi Qinghan's. There were no flaws. The Divine Lord walked out and faced the army. A ban order appeared in his hand. It was exactly the same as the Left Marshal's order that Yi Qinghan had. Lord Left Marshal. The leading general was shocked. He did not expect the Left Marshal to appear here at night. Don't show off. Take me to Lord Marshal Snow. I want to catch the Divine Lord off guard. The Divine Lord said in a low voice. Yes. Lord. The general of the Snow Domain army saw the order. He naturally did not think that this Yi Qinghan was a fake. He took the Divine Lord into Marshal Snow's residence. The Divine Lord appeared in Marshal Snow's courtyard and said in a deep voice, Zhou Feng is here to visit Lord Marshal Snow. Marshal Snow woke up from his seclusion. The bodyguard beside him stopped the Divine Lord. The Divine Lord took out the Left Marshal's order again. Marshal Snow walked out of his room. He looked at the Left Marshal's order. It was exactly the same as the real thing. His appearance and body had been changed. He did not suspect that this person was a fake Divine Lord. Come in. Marshal Snow said hoarsely. Chapter 1322. The God Master entered the room and bowed as Marshal Zhou. This time, we need to catch the Divine Sect off guard. If I don't appear, they will definitely assassinate the ministers and even attack you. When we catch them, we can accuse them of treason and wipe out the Divine Sect. I'll leave this to you. The Snow Border Army will cooperate with you. I need to recover. Leave the Supreme Snow Lotus with me for a while. Marshal Shui said in a deep voice. Okay. The God Master acted as if he was going to take out the Supreme Snow Lotus. But in that split second, he grabbed Marshal Shui's neck and his soul forcefully entered Marshal Shui's mind. It was too fast and Marshal Shui wasn't prepared at all. His soul was directly destroyed and his body immediately went limp. The God Master helped Marshal Shui's body onto the bed and used God power to imprison his body as if he was alive. You can leave first. Tell the people outside not to disturb me. I need some peace. The God Master disguised as Marshal Shui said in a deep voice. Yes, Marshal Shui. The guards outside could only hear the voices but didn't feel any God power ripples. The shadow in the room didn't do anything either, so they didn't suspect anything. The God Master left the room and said to the guard, Marshal Shui needs some peace and quiet. He needs the Supreme Snow Lotus to recover. Don't disturb him. Yes, sir. The young guard slightly bowed. He was definitely one of the strongest of the younger generation. The God Master killed Marshal Shui and swaggered out of the mansion. There was no trace of Marshal Shui's death. The army outside Marshal Shui's mansion was still patrolling. Marshal Shui's personal guard looked inside the room. He wanted to push the door open and take a look, but he was afraid of disturbing Marshal Shui's cultivation. In the pitch-black sacred city, the Forbidden Army was under Jiang Jingtian's command. They were patrolling outside and were very vigilant. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of them. Following the weak light, they realized it was Yi Qinghan. They couldn't help but be shocked. The God Master didn't have any emotions because he didn't know that the person in front of him was Jiang Jingtian or his relationship with Yi Qinghan. He thought he was just an ordinary commander of the Forbidden Army. He quickly took out his seal and said in a deep voice, "Don't make a fuss. Wait for divine sect to act." Jiang Jingtian frowned and said coldly, "High mountains and flowing water." The Divine Lord was bewildered. He knew it was a secret signal, but he didn't know how to respond. While the Divine Lord was stunned, Jiang Jingtian was not. He took a step back and waved his hand. The army behind him immediately readied all the crossbows. Divine power surged, and sharp killing intent filled the air. Divine light soared into the sky. High mountain and flowing water. Jiang Jingtian said coldly again. The Divine Lord calmed himself down and said in a deep voice, "Does this marshal still need a secret signal? Is the Commander-in-Chief's order not trustworthy? This isn't a secret signal of the Imperial Army, but a secret signal between you and I. You don't even know who I am, do you?" Jiang Jingtian's eyes were already filled with doubt. He lightly stomped his foot, and energy rushed into the left marshal's residence. The strong cultivators in the residence were immediately on alert. They took out their opening realm crossbows, unleashed their divine powers, and aimed at the Divine Lord. Whoosh! The defensive enchantment outside the left marshal's residence was opened. The army moved in unison, and energy leaked out. In an instant, the place was brightly lit. A distress arrow flew into the sky and exploded. The holy city was suddenly as bright as day. Many strong cultivators flew into the sky. Zhu Wuxin personally led the city guards to charge at the left marshal's residence. I didn't expect Sua Feng to be so smart. He even set up a secret signal. I underestimated him. However, even if it wasn't an assassination, I could still easily kill you all. Boom! The Divine Lord's chi burst out, and his supreme godly might surged. He swept his sword across and struck the enchantment. Suddenly, the sky cracked and the earth shattered. Chi soared into the galaxy. The houses in the left marshal's residence were shaken, but the enchantment was not broken. Whoosh! Whoosh! Countless crossbow bolts broke through the sky and shot toward the Divine Lord. For a moment, the outside of the left marshal's residence was like hell. The earth shook, but the enchantment remained as stable as Mount Tai. The Divine Lord destroyed all the crossbow bolts. His energy was unstable, and he took a few steps back. He looked at the enchantment of the left marshal's residence with shock in his eyes. He said to himself hoarsely, "This is the barren ancient protective sky array. It is said that the enchantment will not break if the heavens do not defeat it." At this moment, Zhu Wuxin led a group of 10,000 elites to form an array. The stars moved and the area slowly shrank. They wanted to trap the Divine Lord in the array. A military saint was not easy to deal with. Under the command of a saint, 10,000 elite soldiers would definitely be able to surround the Divine Master. In addition, there were so many experts in the left marshal's residence. Once they were trapped, the Divine Master would not be able to escape. The Divine Lord's face turned cold. He did not expect to leave the left marshal's residence alive after killing Marshal Yun. He knew that he could not stay here for long. He tore open the void and was about to leave. At this moment, at least 10,000 attacks landed where the Divine Lord was standing. Time and space collapsed, and a black hole swallowed everything. The Divine Lord then disappeared. Someone is impersonating the left marshal with a fake left marshal token. Anyone who sees the left marshal should not believe him unless he is recognized by the left marshal's residence. A thunderous voice came from the sacred city. This reminder made the Marshal Yun's residence furious. Everyone rushed to the left marshal's room. Marshal Yun's personal bodyguard was the first to enter the room. He found that Marshal Yun was already dead. His corpse was sitting on the bed. His eyes were filled with anger and unwillingness. The Marshal Yun's residence was furious. 10,000 snow border army rushed to the left marshal's residence. The sacred city was in chaos. There were countless casualties. After the Divine Lord's location was exposed, the Heavenly Master could not continue fighting. Because all the city lords were on alert. They stayed with their bodyguards and were protected by the army. But in just a few hours, at least 100 officials had died. The imperial palace was also in chaos. Some palace maids and bodyguards died tragically. No one knew who did it. The 9th prince and Shui Wuhan did not dare to stay in their own residences. They had been hiding in the imperial palace. The left marshal's residence had collapsed. It was a mess. Many of the imperial guards had died. But they were not injured. The snow border army surrounded the left marshal's residence under the leadership of a general and Marshal Yun's personal bodyguard. That personal bodyguard said that he was Marshal Yun's bodyguard. Actually, he was an orphan adopted by Marshal Yun. He was named Shui Ling. His cultivation was very strong. He looked at the people of the left marshal's residence furiously and roared. "That left marshal is a fake. Do you have proof? The entire Imperial Guards can prove it. Didn't you see that he wanted to sneak into the left marshal's residence? Something must have happened to Marshal Yun. At this time, we are more concerned about Marshal Yun's safety. How can we attack Marshal Yun's residence at this time?" Gu Qingyu stood up and said in a deep voice. "Then where did he get the Imperial Guard token? It is impossible to fake it. I will not be fooled by a fake one." Shui Ling angrily questioned. "Others may not be able to fake it. But the Divine Lord and those extreme experts can." Gu Qingyu argued. He did not want to fall out with the snow border army at this time. Chapter 1323. Outside the left marshal mansion, both sides were facing each other with murderous intent. At this time, the divine bird ran out and said angrily, "If my master is back, shouldn't he go back to the left marshal mansion first? Why should he go to your Marshal Shui mansion? Didn't you see that our people are dead? Just now, tens of thousands of attacks attacked that person at the same time, and the military Saint General Zhu was besieging him, but he still left calmly. Although my master is powerful, he is not that powerful. This is the truth, don't be blinded by hatred and do things that will make your enemies happy. Xue Ling, believe me, that person is not the left marshal, and he can't be one of the left marshal's men. There are many elites in the left marshal mansion, but none of them are that powerful. You have followed Marshal Xue since you were young, and I was trained by Marshal Xue when I was young. His kindness to me is no less than his kindness to you. Anyone can betray Marshal Xue, but not you and I. Don't you believe my words? Zhu Wuxin said in a deep voice. Marshal Xue died so miserably. I want to take revenge. Zhu Wuxin, if you don't help me find the murderer, you are not human. Xue Ling cried, her hatred soared. I don't need you to tell me this. Marshal Xue treated me like a son, and I treated him like a father. Now that he was assassinated, I am also heartbroken, but the murderer is not the left marshal, the murderer is obvious. We only lack evidence, I will get it. Zhu Wuxin clenched his fist and roared hoarsely. At this time, the entire divine nation did not have a leader who could decide the nation, no one had this prestige. The emperor fainted and could die at any time, Marshal Xue died, Ling Yan wandered everywhere, and no one knew where he was. The left marshal disappeared, the sacred city was in chaos, everyone was fighting for themselves. At this time, the Divine Lord left the sacred city and used a large long-distance teleportation formation. In one day, he teleported to Ling Yan's ancestral land hundreds of millions of li away. Ling Yan was not at home, but his only disciple was here. Ji Gu. Top 3 of the young generation, he could represent Ling Yan to control the Snow Border Army. As long as he could convince Ji Gu, the sacred city would be controlled by the Snow Border Army. Ji Gu hadn't appeared for many years, because being invincible was very lonely. No matter if it was leading an army or fighting strength alone, he was a supreme king. His only goal now was to surpass his master, Ling Yan, so he had been studying Ling Yan's art of war these past few years. Although the Divine Lord was much older than Ji Gu and had a higher cultivation level, their seniority was the same. When the Divine Lord saw Ji Gu, he had to respectfully address him as Mr. The Ling family was a holy land. War would never affect this place, and no one would dare. Even those from the outer realm knew that this was a forbidden land. Spirit Qi gathered, and the environment was beautiful. It was like a fairyland. The people here were simple and honest, and the experts kept a low profile. No one dared to cause trouble here. Some people who didn't want to fight were willing to settle down here. However, if they wanted to stay in the Ling family's territory, they would need the Ling family's permission. The Ling family's territory wasn't big, only 30 million li. It was equivalent to a city lord's mansion or an overlord's territory, so this place wasn't much. However, it was enough for the Ling family to recuperate. This was also Ling Yan's way of appeasing the divine nation, so the Ling family's position in the divine nation was very high. Even the princes didn't dare to cause trouble here. The Divine Lord was also well behaved here. He walked forward, but his speed was no different from flying. The Divine Lord's appearance immediately attracted the Ling family's attention. An elder personally came to greet him. Divine Sect Xueyu greets Elder Ling. This time, I have an important matter to ask Mr. Ji Gu to come out and oversee the sacred city. Elder, please help me pass the message. The Divine Lord bowed and said. The Ling family elder had white hair and a sage-like demeanor. He looked kind, but the might in his bones wasn't something an ordinary person could compare to. So it's the Divine Sect Master. Excuse me for not coming out to greet you. What happened in the sacred city? The elder slightly bowed back and asked with a frown. His Majesty's old illness has relapsed and he can no longer wake up. All the princes have begun to fight for the throne and kill each other. The Snow Domain Army's commander Marshal Xue was assassinated. The Forbidden Army's commanders Hua Feng stole my sect's most precious treasure, the Snow Lotus, and disappeared. There is no one in the city who can make decisions. This old man had no choice but to come and ask Mr. Ji Gu to come out and help suppress the chaos in the sacred city. The Divine Lord had a sanctimonious appearance, as if he was doing it for the world. Within the Ling family's sacred ground, a black-haired youth sat cross-legged on a mountain peak. His back was facing a group of children. In his hand, he was holding Ling Yan's Art of War. His eyes were glued to the book, and a faint pressure was released. The profound laws around him were attached, as if the entire world was his domain. His vigorous back revealed an unsurpassable aura that made people despair. A group of children were playing around in the valley, but it didn't affect his mood at all. Occasionally, he would turn around and look at the children's laughter. His indifferent smile was enchanting and overshadowing the world. "Brother Ji Gu, come and play with us. Why are you reading all day? Who is your opponent?" The children waved their hands at him. Ji Gu smiled, and the corners of his mouth curled up. It was indeed attractive. No wonder the children weren't afraid of him at all. "You guys play. Someone is looking for me." Ji Gu put away Ling Yan's Art of War. His figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. He didn't even cause the slightest spatial fluctuation. The Divine Lord looked for Ji Gu, but the seventh prince looked for the Realm Lord's disciple. This person's identity was even more terrifying than Ji Ji's. Every word and action of his represented the Supreme Realm Lord. However, under normal circumstances, he couldn't interfere with the matters of the imperial family. This was a restriction placed on him by the Realm Lord to prevent him from interfering excessively with the matters of the imperial family and disrupting the rule of the imperial family. This person was called Mu Yunfeng. Outsiders didn't know much about him. The battlefield he fought in wasn't the snow country or the divine world, but some places where humans couldn't set foot in. His strength was only at the peak of the supreme realm, but his battle prowess was even more terrifying than the divine lord's. He could split the sky with his bare hands. The secret technique he cultivated was the Supreme Realm Lord's secret technique. Coincidentally, Mu Yunfeng just happened to come back from the dangerous place outside the divine world. Seeing the chaos in the divine world, he went to the imperial palace to ask about it. However, the person he found was the seventh prince. The seventh prince immediately told him what had happened in the city recently. He seriously slandered Yi Qinghan and hoped that Mu Yunfeng could suppress the left commander's residence and protect his position. At this time, Ji Gu of the Ling family appeared in the divine world to protect the fourth prince. He stood from the perspective of the world and protected the fourth prince. Ji Ji's name was also because Ling Yan was tired of war and hoped that the world would stop fighting. Therefore, he was named Ji Gu. Ji Gu was also someone who didn't like war. When the two strongest experts met, they realized that the person they were supporting was different. Their eyes were filled with fighting spirit. They didn't like war, but it didn't mean that Ji Gu didn't like to fight with experts. He was especially interested in people like Mu Yunfeng. Chapter 1324. Inside the holy city, the two supreme kings could cover the sky with a wave of their hands. Their gazes were enough to change the world. Brother Cheng, the fourth prince, is the only one who is suitable to be the emperor. The seventh prince is not suitable. I hope you won't interfere with the imperial family's affairs. Ji Gu faced Mu Yunfeng. The two supreme kings stood proudly and looked down on all living things. They could suppress the world with a single glance. Not interfering in the affairs of the royal family is based on the condition that His Majesty is sober and the sacred city is stable. Master also gave me a special request, which is that when His Majesty is no longer sober and the sacred city is in chaos, I must forcefully intervene and assist a suitable prince to ascend the throne. Ji Gu, if you cooperate, I will give you face. If not, then we will meet in the palace. Divine light flowed around Mu Yunfeng's body. He was very handsome, like the son of the gods. He stood in front of people, but people couldn't see through him. His majestic voice was vast and mighty. It carried a destructive power that spread in all directions. Then we will meet in the palace. I will not give up on protecting the fourth prince. Ji Gu faintly responded to Mu Yunfeng's challenge. The two supreme kings had both strength and status. When the two entered the holy city, everyone suddenly quieted down. Even the heavenly lord no longer interfered with the holy city's affairs. When Ji Gu entered the holy city, the first thing he did was to forcefully take control of the Snow Border Army and take back the commander's seal in the name of Ling Yan. Even Xue Ling couldn't stop him and didn't want to stop him. However, the Snow Border Army was blocked outside the city by the city guards. Yi Qinghan controlled 10 Snow Border Army units and millions of loyal soldiers were secretly migrating towards the holy city. They could deal with the upheaval in the holy city at any time. The next morning, although there were no assistant ministers, Ji Gu and Mu Yunfeng appeared. They were the assistant ministers. Their words and actions represented the supreme majesty. Many ministers didn't dare to say anything even if they disagreed with the two's decision. They could only sit and watch the two fight. His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince empathizes with the common people. He is a steady and bright person. He does things flawlessly, and he is also adept at handling state affairs. These years, he has been helping His Majesty deal with state affairs and has won the hearts of the people. I, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Snow Domain Army, support him to ascend to the throne. I ask everyone to support His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince and return the sacred city to stability. Ji Gu looked disdainfully at the crowd and said in a low voice. Humph. The fourth prince empathized with the people and was a steady and bright person. The sixth prince's coma and the shattering of the spiritual space were all related to him. The assassination of Marshal Yun and the disappearance of the other assistant minister, Zhuo Feng, all had something to do with the holy sect behind the fourth prince. How could he become the ruler of a country if he was willing to do anything for the throne? Does controlling the world require scheming against the people of the world? Mu Yunfeng questioned in a deep voice. Brother Cheng, you can't speak carelessly. If you have evidence, you can take it out and let the world bear witness. If this matter was indeed done by His Royal Highness, I will naturally choose another prince to be His Majesty. If it is just groundless accusations, slandering a prince and damaging the dignity of the country, can you bear this responsibility? Ji Gu asked coldly. There is such a suspicion. I said that if His Royal Highness wants to ascend to the throne, he must investigate this matter. Otherwise, how can he become His Majesty? The people of the world will not accept this. Mu Yunfeng replied indifferently. The princes did not have the right to interrupt, let alone the ministers. They could only watch the two fight. Ji Gu looked at the seventh prince and asked indifferently, Brother Cheng, I want to know why you support His Royal Highness the seventh prince. His Majesty the seventh prince is loyal and His Majesty loved him very much when he was alive. The people of the territory live in peace and have a lot of prestige. It can be seen that he is good at managing the country. This is the reason why I support him. Mu Yunfeng replied indifferently. Since we each have our own opinions, the common people will decide. The royal family will vote, the ministers will vote, and the winner will be His Majesty. Ji Gu did not want the scarred Snow Empire to suffer another disaster, so he chose the election system. Gu Qingyu and the people of the left marshal's residence looked on coldly. They did not refute, but when it came to voting, they would not choose either of them. Ji Gu and Mu Yunfeng looked at the people of the left marshal's residence and found that they were indifferent. They did not have any intention of supporting them, so they could not help but frown. What does the left marshal's residence mean? Mu Yunfeng asked in a deep voice. We will obey His Majesty's imperial edict. His Majesty's choice is the one we will support. The one elected by others will not be the orthodox. Gu Qingyu said indifferently, not giving the two supremes any face. His Majesty is in a coma. Unless he wakes up now, no imperial edict will count. Now, the left marshal's residence must choose His Majesty the 4th Prince or His Majesty the 7th Prince. Ji Gu said forcefully. The two heroes of the sacred city were fighting for supremacy, but Yi Qinghan and Xiaoye had run to the real spiritual world. Yi Qinghan's residence had more than 700 slaves of the real spiritual world. They were very familiar with the power system of the real spiritual world, so they did not panic. The real spiritual world was vast and boundless. Fortunately, it was adjacent to the Snow Country's divine world. Moreover, they had run to the northeast of the real spiritual world, which was not too far from the Snow Country's divine world. If they wanted to go back, it would only take 2 or 3 days of travel. The vast mountain range was rich in resources. There were adventurers everywhere. This place was close to the 6 animal worlds, so there were as many fierce beasts as there were hairs on an ox. They were incomparably powerful. Yi Qinghan brought Xiaoye here. Xiaoye wanted to put on her mask, but Yi Qinghan threw it to the side. Are you worried that it won't attract enough attention? Yi Qinghan forcefully grabbed Xiaoye's waist and asked hoarsely. Xiaoye had been bullied the whole way here, but she could not resist. She hated Yi Qinghan to the core. You bastard! If my master knew that you bullied me like this, he would definitely beat you to death. Xiaoye said angrily. That old fart probably won't dare to see me. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and said. Xiaoye snorted a few times. She could only let Yi Qinghan hug her as they moved towards the Snow Country's divine world under everyone's envious gazes. Aren't you attracting attention like this? Xiaoye asked weakly as she felt her waist go numb. How could such a handsome man and beautiful woman not attract attention as they moved forward? Yi Qinghan deliberately stroked the soft flesh on her waist and pretended to be frivolous as he said, They are only envious of me now, but if you wear a mask, they will want to dig out your identity. This is a fundamental difference. For your safety, you have to suffer a little. Otherwise, if we fight, our identities will be exposed. The current Yi Qinghan was a complete hedonist. He did not look like an assistant minister at all. He was a gentleman. He played the two extremes to the extreme. Even 10 best actors could not compare to him. The people of the real spiritual world were generally thin and delicate. The men were not even as tall as Xiaoye. In front of Yi Qinghan, they were even thinner and weaker. Many people looked at Yi Qinghan with envy. However, they could feel the faint pressure coming from Yi Qinghan's body, so they did not dare to get too close. At that moment, a rumble came from afar. An aurora rushed into the clouds and filled the borderlands with pressure. It was as if a treasure had appeared. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and looked at the border between the 6 beast world, the real spiritual world, and the Snow Country's divine world. He said in surprise, It's actually the aura of a pseudo-world weapon. This is a land of chaos and is very dangerous. Could a pseudo-world weapon have been born? Chapter 1325. Off in the distance, divine light soared into the sky, and pressure spread out in all directions, making it impossible for anyone to get close. What a powerful pressure! What a treasure! Yi Qinghan said heroically. There aren't many people here, so it won't attract any supremes. Let's go steal it. Although the adventurers here had decent cultivation bases, they were all giant gods. There were very few paramount gods, and most paramount gods enjoyed their lives at home. Who would go out and wander about? Not only would they not be able to find any opportunities, if they encountered any danger, they might even die. With so many years to live, no one was willing to take the risk. We'll split it half. You can't have it all. Xiaoye said seriously. Tsk. Even you are mine, and you want to split the treasures? Yi Qinghan said with a raised eyebrow. Xiaoye snorted, and then she and Yi Qinghan quickly charged into the danger zone. The danger zone was surrounded by steep cliffs and rips, and if one fell in, they would be swept away by the turbulence. Even paramount gods would be in danger. Many of the weaker greater gods only dared to wander around the perimeter, while the giant gods joined forces to take the risk and enter the danger zone to obtain the supreme treasures. Treasure light soared into the sky from the depths of the danger zone, and pressure spread out. It seemed to be right in front of them, but it was separated by the heavens, and no one dared to take the risk. Some of the paramount gods did not have powerful clans, and thus could not obtain paramount god weapons. They could only take the risk to search for the primordial chaos treasures. But now, they hesitated. If they died here, their clans would suffer miserable fates, and they would be swallowed up by other powerful organizations. Yi Qinghan held Xiaoye in his arms, a playful look on his face as he swaggered into the danger zone. Everyone looked at him with amusement, but it was a bit of a pity that such a beautiful girl like Xiaoye would be torn apart by the space here. However, there were some kind-hearted people who stepped forward to stop him, not for Yi Qinghan, but for Xiaoye. Fellow Taoists, up ahead is a ripping danger zone. It looks like an ordinary space, but once you fall in, it will become a spatial black hole. Even divine weapons can be torn apart. Treasures are right in front of you, but they will be quickly sucked away, and you won't necessarily be able to find them again. A young man stared straight at Xiao Yu, almost drooling. Yi Qinghan glanced at the young man and then said to Xiaoye, "Wait for me outside. I will come out after I get the treasure." Xiaoye frowned and advised, "Isn't it too dangerous? I've heard of this sort of danger zone. Quite a few over-gods have died here." "Yo, you're worried about me," Yi Qinghan teased. "I'm worried that you won't die. Get in." Bang! Xiaoye lifted her leg and kicked. Her strength was indeed 2 minor realms higher than Yi Qinghan's. Her attack was extremely fast, and at such close range, there was nowhere for him to dodge. He was kicked straight into the danger zone. Boom! Fuck! Yi Qinghan cursed as he was pulled into the spatial storm. Xiao Yu was taken aback. Her eyes were filled with worry as she rushed in. "Damn it, you're giving me trouble." Xiaoye angrily muttered to herself. Her powerful supreme godhead power surged as she rushed into the spatial storm. Yi Qinghan's feather spirit robe's defensive power erupted, and the spatial storm couldn't do anything to him. He was leisurely inside the spatial storm, looking at Xiaoye with interest. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. He didn't expect Xiaoye to come in by herself. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan's leisurely appearance, and she was furious. She wanted to leave the spatial storm, but Yi Qinghan grabbed her hand. Swish! Yi Qinghan pulled Xiaoye and tore through space, teleporting towards the treasure. "Is that divine robe on your body a world artifact or a pseudo-world artifact?" Xiaoye asked in a muffled voice. "Take a guess." "Go to hell." Ha 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 ha. Hearty laughter came from the danger zone. Xiaoye frantically waved her small hands, scratching and scratching. Unfortunately, she couldn't break through the feather spirit robe's defense. At most, she could only tickle Yi Qinghan. The danger zone was indeed dangerous. There were spatial cracks everywhere. It was fine at first, but once it was touched, it would instantly crack and tear everything apart. Ordinary people couldn't defend against it at all. No wonder so many supreme gods were killed. There were many corpses in the spatial cracks. Their souls were torn apart, but their bodies were still preserved. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took the universe ring. Even the defensive armor was taken away. "You lowly hooligan. You're rich from the dead," Xiaoye unhappily reprimanded. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and disdainfully retorted, "Look at what you're saying. Aren't assassins just rich from the dead? How can it be the same?" Xiaoye retorted. "What's the difference?" Yi Qinghan asked. The corner of Xiaoye's mouth twitched. After thinking for a long time, it seemed that there really wasn't much of a difference. In fact, it seemed that his actions were worse. You don't know how expensive the daily necessities are. I have so many brothers around me. It's a waste to leave these resources here. Why don't I exchange them for some treasures for my brothers to use? They can even save their lives. Yi Qinghan said seriously. The serious Yi Qinghan's brows revealed a vicissitude that made one's heart ache. He didn't want to waste resources at all. Even though he was in a danger zone, he still thought of his brothers and sisters. Xiaoye was speechless. An indescribable feeling of sourness welled up in her heart. In the distance, there was a barren mountain range. There was no life at all. There was only a vast expanse of fog and shattered rocks flying about. The spatial cracks swallowed everything, but there was a divine light and a faint pressure in the center of the mountain range. It seemed to be resisting the devouring of the spatial cracks. The pseudo-world artifact was indeed powerful. The spatial cracks nearby were enough to tear apart a supreme god's body, but they couldn't tear it away. Wait for me outside. I have the feather spirit robe. These spatial cracks are useless against me. Yi Qinghan placed Xiaoye in a relatively safe place and spoke forcefully. Be careful. Xiaoye reminded him from the bottom of her heart. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and rushed into the mountain range alone. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan's back and frowned. She didn't know why she was so concerned about this hoodlum. She had been taken advantage of over the past few days. If it were anyone else, they would have already suffered heavy losses and killed him. However, when it came to this hoodlum, sometimes she would act like she didn't want to be taken advantage of, but in reality, she would just scold him a little. The periphery of the mountain range was filled with spatial cracks. There was no way to stand around. In the center of the valley, there was a rectangular object. It looked a bit like a stone brick, but it emitted a thick pressure of a world artifact. However, it wasn't a world artifact. It could be considered a peak pseudo-world artifact. It looks a bit like the golden brick in the stone song, but its level is much higher. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. He stood at the top of the mountain and clenched his fists. His veins bulged as he punched the spatial crack. It collapsed and his figure disappeared into the valley. Whine. The stone brick trembled and the pressure grew even stronger. It rolled out in waves. An ordinary supreme god wouldn't be able to withstand this pressure. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a sneer. His iron hand transformed into a sky-piercing claw that took control of the stone brick. The stone brick suddenly exploded with light that soared into the sky and shattered the surrounding space. It was as though it was resisting Yi Qinghan's control. Humph. I can even control the great wasteland steel, let alone a little thing like you. Chapter 1326. Inside the valley, Yi Qinghan grabbed the stone brick. His dragon blood boiled as he flattened the mountain range that even the spatial cracks couldn't tear apart. His aura soared into the sky like an invincible god of war. The spatial cracks in the surroundings were also flattened. The pseudo-world artifact emitted a terrifying power that instantly sucked away 80% of Yi Qinghan's energy. Boom! 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 In a split second, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The forbidden ground had become a true forbidden ground. What a terrifying pseudo-world artifact. As expected of a supreme treasure born from heaven and earth. Yi Qinghan swallowed a divine pellet and rapidly recovered. Perhaps the stone brick had its own artifact spirit. It was subdued by Yi Qinghan's domineering aura and gave up resisting. Xiaoye, who was standing in the distance, narrowed her eyes. She could feel that the outer space was starting to riot. It seemed to be suppressing the life form that had desecrated the forbidden ground. She immediately shouted, "Leave this place quickly. The forbidden ground is going berserk." Yi Qinghan was startled. He looked around and found that the black hole had appeared 1,000 meters away. It engulfed and devoured everything as if the end of the world had arrived. It was tearing everything apart and rushing towards him. He was shocked to find that there was a thick sense of danger shrouding him. It was too late to leave now. He rolled and rushed to the mountain range that he had flattened. He hoped that the mountain would be able to block some of the power. The rest would be blocked by the feather spirit robe. As for his current physical body, even the slightest shockwave would be enough to kill him. Even the soul of a realm lord wouldn't be able to withstand it. Boom! 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 The spatial cracks swept across the land and shattered everything. The mountain range was soon flattened. Boom! In a split second, Yi Qinghan was devoured. The mountain couldn't withstand it at all. Extreme joy begets sorrow. Yi Qinghan cursed. He activated the feather spirit robe and couldn't care about anything else. The realm lord probably wouldn't extend his divine sense here. Moreover, this spatial storm was devouring everything. Even the soul of a realm lord might not be able to penetrate it. Inside the alternate space, the storm swept through the mountain range, and some mountains were swallowed whole. There was debris everywhere, as well as some broken divine weapons. Boom! Yi Qinghan was torn apart by the storm. If not for the feather spirit robe protecting his body, he would have been crippled. Xiao Yu felt as if her soul had been torn apart. This was the first time she had experienced the feeling of loss. She looked at the swirling black hole in the distance in a daze. Her soul was empty, and she was in so much pain that she could not breathe. "You bastard, are you going to die just like that?" She leaned against the mountain range in a daze. She didn't even have the strength to run, nor did she want to run. The black hole gradually expanded outwards, wanting to swallow everything. It was getting closer and closer to Xiaoya's position. Whoosh! Whoosh! The tearing force in space was extremely terrifying. It was no wonder that this place had become the graveyard of the overgods. Yi Qinghan had lost control of his body and could only move with the wind. Only when the two of them reached the same speed would the tearing force not harm him. The black hole was moving rapidly. Yi Qinghan's soul was operating at full speed, calculating the speed at which they could escape from the black hole. At this moment, a divine sword appeared in Yi Qinghan's eyes. It was actually as stable as Mount Tai under such a crazy storm. It stood in the center of the storm. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The divine sword was bombarded, but it did not move at all. Yi Qinghan was overjoyed. He activated his divine power to protect his body and rushed towards the divine sword. Boom! Boom! The divine sword was right in front of him, but the tearing force was too strong. Just moving half a step would cause him to endure the terrifying tearing force. Ka! Ka! His bones were breaking. Yi Qinghan's expression was malevolent as he went against the flow. Ah! The iron arm broke, and the bracelet vibrated. It shone brightly and rushed out of the black hole. The great desolation divine bead exploded, releasing the power of a sector lord. It blocked the tearing force, and Yi Qinghan's pressure was greatly reduced. He reached out and grabbed the divine sword in the center. Hum! The divine sword had no scabbard. It let out a sword hum as soon as he touched it. The divine light tore the black hole apart. Boundless divine power of the great desolation divine bead was poured into the sword, causing it to resonate. Hua! Pseudo-world artifact. The divine sword emitted the power of a world. It was vast and boundless, capable of destroying everything. It was even more destructive. It was more powerful than the stone brick, but its defensive capabilities were not as good as the stone brick. They each had their own strengths. Yi Qinghan held the sword in one hand and the brick in the other. The bracelet turned into armor to protect his ribs. Boom! Yi Qinghan used the pseudo-world artifact's power to attack the depths of the black hole. The counterforce pushed him towards the entrance of the black hole. Boom! 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 The black hole quickly moved towards the periphery. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Xiaoye. However, she seemed to have given up on escaping and could only watch as the black hole descended. Hum! In the midst of this light, Yi Qinghan charged out of the black hole. He saw Xiaoye standing there in a daze. He swooped down and swept her away. Hug me! Yi Qinghan shouted in a low voice. His tone was filled with blame and anger. He was angry that she had given up on her life. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. She did not expect him to be able to charge out of the black hole and out of the danger zone. Her eyes were filled with adoration as she hooked her arms around Yi Qinghan's neck and clamped her legs around his waist. A line of clear tears flowed from her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away with her shoulder. I thought you were dead, you bastard. Xiaoye cried and laughed at the same time. She felt wronged. If I died, would you give up on your life? Are you crazy? The restriction I placed on you was not a master-servant restriction. Yi Qinghan stomped on the ground and his divine sword tore through the sky. Even the spatial cracks could not stop him. He roared with deep concern and destroyed Xiaoye's last bit of defense. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan turned into a stream of light and tore through the mountains and rivers. In the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the danger zone. He looked at the roaring black hole that seemed to want to engulf the entire world. He could not help but feel a chill. The group of people outside looked at Yi Qinghan in a daze. There was fear in their eyes. This was the first time they had seen someone climb out of a black hole. Was this guy still human? However, even more experts stared at Yi Qinghan's golden brick and pseudo-world treasure divine sword. It was obvious that they coveted them. Some of the paramount gods started to get restless. They seemed to have forgotten about Yi Qinghan and Xiaoye's strength. When the black hole reached the edge of the danger zone, it automatically lost its effect. A surge of world power pulled the black hole away and it slowly retreated into the depths. Every great world had its own rules and order. They would not allow a transcendent power to enter their own world. Who? Yi Qinghan breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at Xiaoye in his arms with an evil grin and said, Beauty, do you feel safe in my arms? I'm going to bite you to death, you bastard. Xiaoye exaggeratedly opened her mouth and bit down. Her bite force was not weak. The feather spirit robe was already hidden. A bloody bite mark appeared on Yi Qinghan's shoulder. Yi Qinghan was in so much pain that the corner of his mouth twitched. He put away the two pseudo-world treasures and held Xiaoye down to give her a good spanking. I forgot to teach you a lesson. How dare you be so arrogant now? Slap. 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 The Lord of Hell, a peerless beauty, was being held down and spanked by Yi Qinghan in front of everyone. Moreover, the sound was so crisp. Hearing Xiaoye's screams gave Yi Qinghan an indescribable pleasure. Bastard, stop it. Otherwise, I'm going to fight back. Xiaoye's face was red. She was being spanked by Yi Qinghan until her entire body was numb and powerless. She did not even have the strength to fight back. She could only let him beat her. Stand properly. Today, I'm going to teach you how to treat your master with respect. Yi Qinghan let go of Xiaoye and said with a serious expression. Xiaoye was flustered and exasperated. She lifted her leg and kicked Yi Qinghan's toes. After that, she ran away. She even made a face and said disdainfully, Bullshit master. If you can't beat me with restrictions, you can do whatever you want. If you can't beat me, don't be so arrogant. Chapter 13:27. Yi Qinghan looked at Xiaoye's arrogant face and smiled evilly. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by a dozen over-gods. You want to leave? Leave the pseudo-world weapon behind. A tall and sturdy man said coldly. Slap. Yi Qinghan took advantage of the opportunity to slap the man across the face. The power of the world was so great that not even a paramount god was able to escape. The muscular man was sent flying several hundred meters before slamming heavily into the ground. Leave your grandpa. I've robbed others my entire life, and I've never been robbed before. Since you want to rob me, then leave your yin-yang rings behind. If you dare to steal one, I'll cut off your hands so that you won't be able to recover them for the rest of your lives. Yi Qinghan said coldly. The surrounding over-gods, giant gods, and the high gods all turned pale. The burly man was the strongest among them, and he was the most famous. No one in his generation dared to provoke him, but against Yi Qinghan, he could slap them across the face. Who would dare to resist? Ka! 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 Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and stared coldly at them. You don't want to fight? Do you want me to fight? One of the paramount gods surrounding Yi Qinghan immediately fled, but before he could tear through space, Yi Qinghan punched straight through his fleshly body. Blood stained the sky, and his fleshly body was nearly destroyed. More than half of his life force was gone, and he was on the verge of death. This is the fate of anyone who dares to run around, Yi Qinghan said with a sneer. This time, no one dared to move. There was someone even more terrifying than Yi Qinghan watching them. They couldn't fight back or run. They could only obediently hand over their yin-yang rings. The only one left was the over-god who had warned Yi Qinghan and Xiaoye. He smiled sheepishly at Yi Qinghan, then said in a dry voice, "Fellow Taoist, I didn't mean you any harm just now." Clearly, his family was very small, and everything was built on his own efforts. The resources in this universe ring were equivalent to the fate of his family. If there was a chance for negotiation, he naturally wouldn't want to hand it over. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly and said faintly, "I'm a very gentle person and I don't like to use force. Since you were kind just now, I won't be your enemy and will spare you this time. But next time, remember my face. If you're not strong or handsome, don't covet my woman, understand?" Understood. Understood. For an exalted over-god to bow and scrape was quite pitiful. Yi Qinghan didn't want to make things difficult for him, and so he turned and walked towards Xiaoye. The two of them teleported away, leaving behind a group of dumbfounded over-gods. As for the crippled over-god, he was filled with regret. Now, he could be controlled by someone else at any moment and become their slave. Faced with the unfriendly gazes of the other over-gods, he quickly healed himself and tore through the void to flee. Some of the experts who had lost their resources were very interested in this severely injured over-god, and they immediately chased after him. Yi Qinghan used a teleportation technique and rushed towards the Snow Nation's divine world. His speed was extremely fast, and with a flash of light, the two of them appeared 1,000,000 miles away. This was the result of Yi Qinghan being worried about alerting the Realm Master. Otherwise, they would have appeared at the border of the true spiritual world in an instant. 3 days later, Yi Qinghan completely disappeared, but the Snow Nation's divine world's holy city was filled with pressure and might. Mu Yanfeng and Ji Go fought until the end, and he actually took out a pseudo-world weapon to suppress Ji Go. He couldn't even mobilize the realm army and forced Ji Go to agree to make the 7th Prince Emperor. Today was the day of the coronation. The left marshal's residence didn't have a pseudo-world weapon and couldn't resist Mu Yanfeng. For the sake of safety, they could only endure. Xue Fei was helpless. Even if there was an imperial edict, there was nothing she could do. Moreover, the imperial edict wasn't in the holy city, and Yi Qinghan was nowhere to be found. The 9th prince went from hell to heaven, and then fell from heaven again. He missed the chance to become emperor and was filled with regret. Xue Wuhen was smart. When he saw the two elite supreme masters take action, he knew that there was nothing for him to do. He immediately went into hiding and waited for the true dragon, the Son of Heaven, to appear. The seventh prince was full of smiles. He looked at the people from the left marshal's residence with dense killing intent in his eyes. However, he couldn't touch the left marshal's residence before he sat firmly on the throne. After all, the left marshal's residence and the absolute marshal's residence were inextricably linked, and the Snow Nation's army was related to Ju Wuxian. It was obviously impossible to touch the three greatest powers before he ascended the throne. The fourth prince's face was gloomy. He didn't expect that the seventh prince would benefit in the end. Even Ji Gu couldn't change the situation. Unless Lord Ling Yen came back personally, Muyan Feng wouldn't dare to use the pseudo-world weapon to behave atrociously. Muyan Feng pressed Ji Ji's head with a smile and a hint of provocation. He protected the seventh prince in his dragon robe and prepared to ascend the throne. The emperor still hadn't woken up. His vitality had dissipated and he didn't have any signs of life. He could die at any time. The situation was already set. Even if the left marshal came back personally, he wouldn't be able to change the situation. Some of the ministers began to waver. However, those who were controlled by Yi Qinghan didn't dare to act recklessly. They just waited quietly for the orders from the left marshal's residence. Every dog has its day. Wait for my lord to return. Let's see how arrogant they can be. The divine bird didn't care. It didn't matter who became the emperor. After all, it wouldn't last long. It wasn't worried. Gu Qingyu and the others heard the divine bird's words and felt that it was very reasonable. There was no need to fight to the death with them at this time. There were only 2 hours left before the coronation. All the officials and military commanders had arrived. Muyan Feng held the pseudo-world weapon in his hand and looked disdainfully at everyone. His divine aura filled the air and the light of treasures flowed. Ji Ji's face was solemn. He knew that the seventh prince wasn't suitable to be the emperor. However, there was nothing he could do now. The pseudo-world weapon was equivalent to the Realm Lord coming personally. Apart from the Realm Lord's chief disciple, who else could have a pseudo-world weapon? Are we going to let the seventh prince ascend the throne? Other than eating, drinking, and playing, why would he care about the life and death of the divine nation? The fourth prince roared angrily. He was unwilling, but there was nothing he could do. Let's wait. There's nothing I can do now. If we mobilize the Snow World army to fight to the death with him, who knows how many people will die in vain. Ji Gu shook his head and sighed. The pseudo-world weapon was too powerful. If a supreme god was hit by it, they would die without a doubt. If they wanted to defeat Muyan Feng, who had the pseudo-world weapon, they would need the bodies of millions of soldiers. I'm unwilling. The fourth prince roared hoarsely. So what if you're unwilling? Unless my master returns from his travels or finds Xiao Xingmin from the Xiao family, Fang Xiaoyi from the goddess sect, and Ling Huanyu, the four of us might be able to fight against the pseudo-world weapon. However, they won't take the risk, Ji Gu said helplessly. At this time, Yi Qinghan arrived late. He had just crossed the border river and rushed into the Snow Country's divine world. Come with me to the sacred city. Let's play something big. Yi Qinghan took Xiaoya and rushed into the sky. He stepped on the vast sky and appeared 1,000,000 miles away in the blink of an eye. His teleportation technique, stellar transposition, became faster and faster. The entire divine world was filled with a different aura. Chapter 1328. At noon, the auspicious day had arrived. The seventh prince, wearing a dragon robe, strode to the highest point of the main hall. He held the dragon throne and looked down at everyone. Muyan Feng stood proudly beside him. He was restrained and had no right to control the divine kingdom. He could not replenish the resources and wasted a lot of time. He also wanted to become the Realm Lord and replace him. He needed the support of a divine kingdom. Now that he had seized the opportunity, how could he not choose a puppet? The seventh prince's relatives and forces had been uprooted by Yi Qinghan. He had nothing. If he wanted to ascend the throne, he would need him. If he wanted to stabilize the country, he would also need him. When the time came, he would have to agree to use people. The seventh prince was just a puppet. What Mu Yunfeng wanted was the same as Yi Qinghan. However, Yi Qinghan wanted more ruthless. He wanted to overthrow the seven realms, suppress the realm lords, and kill the controller. He only wanted to become the realm lord. The auspicious hour has arrived. Your Majesty, please ascend the throne. A guard announced in a deep voice. The seventh prince proudly ascended the throne and sat down cross-legged. He smiled and waited for the people to submit. Welcome your Majesty to the throne. May your Majesty live in peace forever. The officials bowed and submitted. Only Ji Ge stood proudly because he knew that Mu Yunfeng would not dare to do anything to him. Although the people of the left marshal's residence bowed slightly, they did not speak. Ha ha ha, my beloved subjects, rise. Today is the day of my ascension. I will grant amnesty to the world. The criminals in the periphery of the bitter desolate prison can be released. As for the lowly people of the great wilderness, I will add some power of desolation to them. It will be considered as me treating them well. The seventh prince laughed. The people of the left marshal's residence were shocked. There was some disbelief in their eyes. They did not expect there to be such a prison in the divine world of the Snow Empire. Cough, cough. Mu Yunfeng coughed twice, reminding the seventh prince not to speak carelessly. The location of the bitter desolation prison was not allowed to be exposed. Even some of the ministers did not know of its existence. It was used to imprison heinous criminals, but in the depths of the prison were the descendants of experts from the great wasteland domain, who would be enslaved forever. In the depths of the bitter desolate prison, it was extremely barren, unable to cultivate. Those experts were imprisoned, but they could marry and have children, continuing their lineage. However, the women who were born were all slaves, used for the entertainment of some of the royal family. There were also some who were sent to the front lines for the enjoyment of the army. Once they became pregnant, they had to be executed. The outside world would absolutely not allow the bloodline of the great desolate wilderness to be spread out. At this time, Gu Qingyu and the others had no choice but to wait. Bitter desolate prison was such an important piece of information that Yi Qinghan had to know. The seventh prince seemed to know that he had said the wrong thing, so he quickly shut his mouth and changed the topic. My beloved ministers, today is a day of celebration. I want to confer titles to my beloved ministers. You have worked hard for Scandinavia. If you are willing to assist me, I will naturally be more than happy to do so. If you are unwilling, I will not make things difficult for you. At this time, the outcome had already been decided. Who would still be stubborn? One after another, they expressed their allegiance. The fourth prince suddenly became a general without an army. Mr. Ji Ge, you are the disciple of Mr. Ling Yan. I will confer you the title of commander of the Snow Border Army. I hope that you can continue Mr. Ling Yan's glory and serve the empire. As for the previous misunderstanding, I will not bother about it. The seventh prince, in order to appease Ji Ge, had no choice but to throw out an olive branch. Mu Yunfeng did not refuse, because he knew that Ji Ge would not serve as a minister for a mentally retarded prince. Sure enough, Ji Ge snorted and said indifferently, "Thank you for your grace, your majesty. However, I am used to being idle. After your majesty ascends the throne, I will leave the capital and give the position of commander of the Snow Border Army to Zhu Wuxin." The seventh prince coldly snorted and said with a hoarse voice, "Beloved minister, Zhu Wuxin is too young. It is difficult for him to take on such a great responsibility. I will make my own decision. There is no need for Mr. Ji Ge to worry." "Then as you wish." Ji Ge did not want to have too much interaction with this kind of person. He retreated to the back and prepared to leave. The seventh prince was dissatisfied with Ji Ji's attitude, but he did not want to offend him. He pretended that he did not see anything and shifted his line of sight. He wanted to find someone who would serve him sincerely. At this moment, Yi Qinghan, dressed in the uniform of the commander of the imperial army, stepped into the imperial palace's main hall. He looked at the seventh prince with a mocking expression. Commander Zhua. Commander Zhua has returned. Hua. There was an uproar in the main hall. Commander Zhua's residence finally had a backbone. Some of the people who were traveling between the seventh prince and Commander Zhua's residence were suddenly terrified. They did not know what Commander Zhua meant and whether the imperial edict was true. Yi Qinghan, wearing golden armor and holding a spear, stepped into the main hall. Behind him were 3,000 imperial army soldiers that completely surrounded the imperial palace. You are Zhua Feng. How dare you bring soldiers into the imperial palace? Do you want to rebel? Mu Yunfeng coldly asked. The atmosphere in the main hall was ice-cold. No one dared to speak. Yi Qinghan calmly walked up the stairs to the seventh prince. You are His Excellency the Realm Lord's eldest disciple, Mu Yunfeng. How dare you threaten the Son of Heaven to order his vassals around and disturb the order of the imperial clan? It seems you don't take His Excellency the Realm Lord's words to heart. The two of them stared daggers at each other, their battle intent soaring to the heavens. The coldness in the main hall was enough to freeze people to death. Many of the ministers backed away, their teeth chattering. Mu Yunfeng stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. Judging from his cultivation base, he was only a low-level paramount god. A disdainful smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Even Paper Halberd had been defeated, so how could he? However, Yi Qinghan didn't even bother to look at Mu Yunfeng. He turned to the seventh prince and said, Your Highness, you don't have a dragon seal or an imperial edict. You can't ascend the throne. And even if you do, your ministers won't be of any use. I can still cripple them. What an arrogant commander Zhua. Do you really think you're an assistant minister? If you scram now, I might be in a good mood and spare you. If you don't scram, I'll kill you on the spot. Mu Yunfeng used the power of his pseudo-world weapon and threatened coldly. A pseudo-world weapon? I have one too. Yi Qinghan took out a stone brick, which emitted a dense world energy that pressed down on Mu Yunfeng. Pooh! Many people standing at the front couldn't withstand the pressure at all. They coughed up blood and were sent flying. The seventh prince fainted, his face pale. If Mu Yunfeng hadn't reacted quickly, he would have been killed by the pressure. I wonder what fellow Daoist Mu thinks are your chances of winning if we were to fight here? Yi Qinghan asked faintly. Paper Halberd was overjoyed. With a peerless pseudo-world weapon, the seventh prince couldn't become emperor. No matter who it was, the seventh prince couldn't be emperor. He wasn't fit to be emperor at all. I support the commander Zhua. Everything must be done according to orthodoxy. I heard that you have an imperial edict. If it's true, then we must follow His Majesty's wishes. No one can disturb the order of the royal family. Paper Halberd stepped forward to support Yi Qinghan. What if I insist on making the seventh prince emperor? Mu Yunfeng stared at Yi Qinghan with narrowed eyes and asked coldly. Yi Qinghan sneered and replied indifferently, If you can make him emperor, then I can cripple him. What makes you think you can? Mu Yunfeng asked coldly. Chapter 1329. Above the main hall, a domineering aura filled the air. Yi Qinghan forcefully faced the eldest disciple of the Realm Lord. His voice was hoarse and dignified, not allowing any blasphemy. With the imperial edict in my hand and the dragon seal bestowed by the emperor. Shua! Yi Qinghan tossed the imperial edict into the air. The laws engraved on the edict were exactly the laws that the emperor had comprehended. The words on the edict were enough to prove that it was the will that the emperor had written when he was awake. Most importantly, Yi Qinghan took out the dragon's seal that represented the emperor. Only with the dragon seal could one be the emperor. Without the dragon seal, one wasn't the legitimate emperor. At this moment, the entire hall was in an uproar. The seventh prince had lost his chance. Mu Yunfeng frowned. He couldn't imagine why the late emperor would be so foolish as to give the dragon seal to an outsider. How much trust did he have in order to do this? The seventh prince howled unwillingly and angrily roared, "Zhuo Feng, you treacherous and treacherous official! How dare you steal imperial father's dragon seal and forge an imperial edict? Men! Men, take this treacherous official down. I will reward you handsomely." Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a smile. He looked at the seventh prince like he was looking at an idiot. The dragon seal is in the emperor's sea of consciousness. Without his approval, who can take it? Seventh prince, are you trying to defy the late emperor's edict? Yi Qinghan retorted. At this moment, Mu Yunfeng couldn't do anything. An imperial edict and a dragon seal were legitimate. Yi Qinghan was incomparably cold. He turned around and stared at the officials. He said in a deep voice, "Everyone knows that I have a grudge with the ninth prince. If the imperial edict was forged, I could have forged it to allow the 18th prince to ascend the throne. After all, I still have some personal feelings for him. However, the emperor has decreed that the ninth prince will be the crown prince. When the emperor is ill and can no longer handle state affairs, the crown prince will ascend the throne. With the dragon seal and imperial edict as proof, anyone who dares to disobey will be disrespectful to the late emperor. We obey the late emperor's edict. We welcome the ninth prince's ascension to the throne." The people under the control of the left marshal's mansion were the first to submit, and then most of the ministers supported the ninth prince. The ninth prince felt like he was in heaven for a moment, then in hell for a moment. His heart was already numb, and he thought that he was dreaming. He stood there in a daze for a long time before his body moved with excitement. He looked gratefully at Yi Qinghan. "Thank you, Marshal Zhua, for your loyalty. You disregarded our past enmity and delivered imperial father's will. This humble prince is moved to tears. I will definitely not disappoint imperial father's great trust and take the world as my responsibility. I won't disappoint Mr.'s assistance. I will definitely put the loyal officials in important positions, and will definitely not be used by treacherous officials." The ninth prince bowed deeply and said in a serious tone. For the ninth prince to be so courteous, Ji Gu was very satisfied. He thought to himself, perhaps the late emperor's decree was correct. "Your Majesty, I dare not accept such a great gift. You are now His Majesty. Please wear the dragon robe and ascend to the throne." Yi Qinghan waved his hand and brought over a dragon robe. Clearly, he was already prepared. "Wait. Let's put aside the matter of ascension for now. Today, we must investigate the death of Marshal Yun." Snow Border Army's Xue Ling roared in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan was stunned. Clearly, this was not part of the plan. At least, it was not supposed to happen now. Marshal Yun still had a very important mission to complete. He must have the support of the imperial family's backbone in order for the ninth prince to ascend to the throne. Marshal Yun has turned into the Tao. Wasn't he still fine before I left? What exactly happened? Tell me. Yi Qinghan furiously asked. This anger was definitely true anger because someone had ruined his plan. Yi Qinghan's anger caused the entire palace to tremble. Ji Gu and Mu Yunfeng frowned because they felt the pressure. It was as if the realm master was angry. This kind of supreme dignity was not something that could be cultivated overnight. A few days ago, someone who looked exactly like you entered Marshal Yun's residence with the Imperial Marshal token. However, after leaving, Marshal Yun died tragically in his room. When that person went to the left marshal's residence with the imperial marshal token, the left marshal's residence realized it was fake and a great battle broke out. Only then did Marshal Yun's residence discover Marshal Yun's death. Zhu Wuxin said in a deep voice. A person can be fake, I naturally believe that. However, how can the marshal's seal be fake? I personally guarded Marshal Yun's side and saw the marshal's seal with my own eyes. Explain to me, how did the marshal's seal appear in someone else's hands? Xue Ling angrily questioned. A few days ago, I entered Snow Country's God realm from the True Spirit realm through the Border River. The Border River's army commander Jun Lu can testify for me. As for the marshal's seal, it has always been with me. Take a look, is this the marshal's seal you saw? Yi Qinghan frowned and directly threw the marshal's seal to Xue Ling. Xue Ling took the marshal's seal and hurriedly retreated. His eyes were full of anger and unwillingness. He roared, I was deceived. It was my mistake that caused Sir's death. Ah! Xue Ling roared at the sky. He was extremely ashamed. He knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. He wailed, Marshal Yun, it was my fault. I actually let a fake marshal's wa get close to you. That's why you died so miserably. I deserve to die. With that, Xue Ling pulled out his sword and was about to commit suicide. Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Ling's pained expression. He knew the feelings between the two, and also knew Zhu Wuxin's feelings for Marshal Yun. His eyes were cold, but he did not stop him. Zhu Wuxin stepped forward and pressed down on Xue Ling's large hand. He said in a low voice, if you blame yourself and commit suicide now, how can you face Marshal Yun? Wake up. Finding the real culprit is the only way to answer to Marshal Yun's soul in heaven. The dead are gone. Xue Ling, I can understand the feelings between you and Marshal Yun. Since this matter involves me, I will naturally give you an explanation. I will also give Marshal Yun an explanation, and give the world an explanation. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Xue Ling's face was full of regret. He said guiltily, thank you for your understanding, Marshal Zhua. I was too impulsive and almost fell for the villain's trick. No matter. When the 9th prince ascends the throne, Marshal Yun's funeral will definitely be grand. I'm sure His Majesty will also support it. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. At this time, Ji Gu and Mu Yunfeng became spectators. Mu Yunfeng did not dare to risk universal condemnation and forcefully kill Yi Qinghan to protect the 7th prince as emperor. He could only plan for the long term. Yi Qinghan handed the dragon robe to the 9th prince. He bowed and said, Your Majesty, please bless the dragon robe, ascend the throne, and order a thorough investigation of Marshal Yun's death. The 9th prince's hands trembled as he took the dragon robe. He entered the side hall and put it on. His face was red, but he pretended to be sad. He said in a hoarse voice, 5th Imperial Uncle has made great contributions to the empire. Until now, only one daughter has been guarding 5th Imperial Aunt's tomb in the ancestral grounds. Now that 5th Imperial Uncle has died in Xing City, I am heartbroken. I will give 5th Imperial Uncle's daughter, Xueyu, the title of Princess Jinjiao. Today, I order that Marshal Zhuo will be the inspector to investigate the truth and give 5th Imperial Uncle justice. What if this matter involves the divine sect? Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. Chapter 1330. At this time, Ji Gu walked out and coldly said, This matter involves the life of the commander of the Snow World Army. Whoever dares to assassinate the commander of the Snow World Army, no matter who it is, kill them all. Whoever dares to stop me, I will lead the Snow World Army and flatten their entire family. This is my master's order. Back then, the God Lord hid outside the palace and did not say anything. He thought that both sides would suffer. But now, it seems that Yi Qinghan won. Even Mu Yunfeng can't do anything to him. But seeing the killing intent in Mu Yunfeng's eyes, he thought of a plan. Since he can't ally with Ji Gu, he can ally with Mu Yunfeng. With any one of them, it would be easy to kill Yi Qinghan. Those who follow me will prosper, those who oppose me will die. Zuo Feng, you will die more miserably than the Snow World Army. The God Lord coldly said as he stared at Yi Qinghan's back with killing intent. Yi Qinghan turned around and stared at the God Lord hiding in the dark. Killing intent rose from the corner of his mouth. Divine sect will perish within 3 years. Resist, otherwise you won't have a chance. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted his voice to the God Lord. He hoped that the God Lord would resist and destroy the divine world so that they can kill each other. Only when they wake up from their dreams will they know that sometimes revenge can be so cruel. The God Lord was expressionless, but the killing intent in his eyes was not concealed. I'll wait for you. I'm afraid you won't live for more than 3 years. The God Lord threw down these words and turned around to leave. Yi Qinghan's words determined the situation. Mu Yunfeng could not change the situation and could only leave angrily. However, he did not leave the holy city. He wanted to find a chance to kill him and appoint a new emperor. Ji Gu also left the main hall. He was not interested in the title of nobility. With his identity, if he wanted to take the position of commander of the Snow Army, even the emperor and Yi Qinghan would not be able to stop him. All that is left is for the 9th prince to ascend the throne and appoint a new minister. A new emperor brings new ministers. The 9th prince no longer has any trusted aides. He can only use the people from the left marshal's residence. He does not dare to not use the people from the left marshal's residence. That day, all the people of the left marshal's mansion were in charge of important places, holding great power in their hands. The commander-in-chief position of the Snow Realm Army was clearly in the hands of Yi Qinghan, while the commander-in-chief position of the Imperial Army was given to Jiang Jingtian. Zhu Wuxin became the deputy commander, Xue Ling also became the deputy commander. Using the original people of the Snow Realm Army to kill Shenzong, that kind of satisfaction was self-evident. Once Yi Qinghan took the position of commander, he was ready to kick out those who didn't listen to him and prepare to attack Divine Sect. 2 days later, the holy city was completely stabilized. After that, Yi Qinghan held a state funeral for Marshal Xue. It was a grand event and it was also the foundation for Marshal Xue's revenge. The Snow Border Army had a common enemy and wanted to take revenge. But just after the state funeral for Marshal Yun, the previous emperor passed away from his coma. Mournful cries rang out everywhere. The divine realm of Snow Country was covered in snow. All the overlords were in danger. The death of the previous emperor meant that the divine kingdom was now completely under the control of the 9th prince and Yi Qinghan. Who lived and who died would be decided by the two of them. The reckoning had begun. The imperial concubines in the harem were terrified. The princes and princesses were in despair. Because the previous emperor had passed away, many people would be buried with him. This was a custom. At least half of the imperial concubines would be buried with him. As for the princes and princesses, that would depend on the mood of the new emperor. Back then, the imperial concubines didn't think that the 9th prince could ascend the throne. Therefore, the imperial concubines' attitude towards Xue Ling was extremely bad. But now, it was too late to regret. Now, in the harem, Xue Ling was wearing a phoenix crown and officially became the Empress Dowager. A large number of imperial concubines were kneeling in the palace, begging her. They hoped that she would spare their lives and that she wouldn't implicate their children. Sister Xue, this lowly servant was wrong. Please be magnanimous and don't bicker with this lowly servant. I'm willing to be a cow or a horse for the rest of my life. Only concubine Yu and concubine Lien had cold expressions. They didn't want to be weak. Concubine Lien still had Divine Sect behind her. If Divine Sect didn't fall, who would dare to do anything to her? As for concubine Yu, she was furious. She didn't want to compromise. She would rather die than kneel to Xue Ling. She also didn't want to lower her head to Yi Qinghan. Xue Ling was the ruler of the world and controlled the harem. The life and death of these people was in her hands. She was in a particularly forthright mood. Looking at the beautiful women in the palace, her eyes flashed with hatred and killing intent. The harem's struggle for power was far more vicious than the ministers. They could easily have their entire families executed. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. You did what you did in the past, so don't blame me for doing what I did now. His Majesty has passed away. He needs people to be buried with him. You've done what you did in the past. Begging me now won't change anything. Xue Ling said coldly. Kill me if you want. I'm willing to be buried with the previous emperor. Concubine Yu said angrily. Sister Yu, I won't kill you. That child, Wuhan, has a good relationship with Marshal Zhou. Marshal Zhou's heart is 18. This is only His Majesty's decree. Why are you angry with me and Mr. Zhou? Xue Ling pretended to sigh. Concubine Yu snorted and didn't answer. She had lost her virginity to Yi Qinghan but didn't get anything. How could she be willing? As long as Sister Yu doesn't mind, you and I will be in charge of the harem. 18 will be conferred the title of King of the 9 states. How about it? In order to please Yi Qinghan, Xue Ling didn't want Yi Qinghan to dislike her, so she made a huge concession. Concubine Yu's expression became better. She bowed slightly and said, I don't mind if it's up to Sister Yu. As long as 18 has a good home and can be the king of peace for a lifetime, I will be satisfied. Sister Yu is so kind. Come sit with Sister Yu. You and I will be sisters from now on. Half of the harem belongs to you. Xue Ling smiled. At this time, the other concubines realized that they had begged the wrong person. Ever since 9th Prince was grounded, Xue Ling had been neglected and ostracized by the other concubines. It would be strange if she didn't take revenge. At this moment, Yi Qinghan arrived in his armor. Looking at the concubines kneeling on the ground, a cold smile appeared on his face. Thinking about the existence of the bitter desolate prison, he didn't feel any pity at all. Lord Left Marshal. Please show mercy. Sir, as long as you open your golden mouth, this lowly servant is willing to be an ox or a horse. Please help me say a word. The concubines turned and kneeled towards Yi Qinghan with tears and snot. Even if they were banished to the cold palace, they didn't want to be buried with him. Most of the people in the harem were cold-blooded. Even if a pure person came in, they would leave with a body full of filth. No one could escape. If one wasn't ruthless and cold, they would be played to death. Yi Qinghan looked at the many beautiful concubines and sneered. He said faintly, the matters of the harem are decided by Empress Dowager Xue. This general is only an outsider and can't interfere. Now, leave. This marshal has something to say to Concubine Yu and Empress Dowager Xue. Concubine Yu and Concubine Xue didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore. They quickly stood up respectfully. The concubines left. The two naturally looked like slaves. They wanted to curry favor with Yi Qinghan, but they were wary of each other and didn't dare to be too obvious. Yi Qinghan sat on the phoenix bed. Concubine Xue half knelt on the bed and massaged Yi Qinghan's shoulders. She gently said, Sir, you've worked hard recently. If you have anything to say, say it later. Let me massage your shoulders to relax you. Concubine Yu saw Concubine Xue being so careless and her expression changed. She finally understood why Yi Qinghan suddenly supported the 9th prince. He lost in service. Chapter 1331. Yi Qinghan faintly smiled and did not resist. He silently enjoyed it. Seeing Yu Fei about to leave in anger, he reached out and grabbed her. Yu Fei, His 18th Highness is not suitable to be the emperor. I will make him live a more comfortable life than the emperor. If you continue to resent me, then you don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Yi Qinghan coldly warned. Yu Fei's hands and feet immediately turned cold. She no longer dared to show her displeasure and took the initiative to massage his shoulders. However, she was far less daring than Xue Fei. Xue Fei did not have any dignity in front of Yi Qinghan. In order to be high and mighty, she was willing to risk it. Since there were only 3 people in the room, even the maids and guards did not dare to approach, she took the initiative to reach her hand in. Yi Qinghan indifferently enjoyed it and asked in a low voice, "How much do you know about the bitter desolate prison?" Bitter desolate prison? Xue Fei was surprised. Only a few princes and favored concubines knew about this place. It was a place for nobles to cultivate concubines. As for the periphery, all the heinous criminals were thrown in there. It was desolate and barren, unsuitable for humans to live there. Their cultivation would become weaker and weaker. I know a bit about this place. I heard it's in the far north state, but I don't know the exact location. Xue Fei helplessly said. Yi Qinghan did not dare to ask the other princes about this place. As for the 9th prince, he did not know either. He could only ask Xue Fei and Yu Fei. However, he knew the general location was in the far north state. He would eventually find it. After being served by the 2 top-quality concubines for a while, he comfortably left the palace. That day, Xue Fei ordered the death of a dozen concubines. The rest were all banished to the cold palace and sent away by Yi Qinghan. However, Yi Qinghan had no interest in sending away a few disfavored concubines. He only wanted to quickly find the bitter desolate prison in the far north state. He asked Xiao Yu, but she did not know either. Only the imperial family knows about this place. I heard that it is a place to imprison criminals. Even the divine sect might not know. Even the princes only know the general location. Mu Yunfeng, Ji Gu, and the 4th prince should know the exact location. Xiao Yu reminded. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He obviously couldn't let these 3 people know about this. Once he inquired about the location of the bitter desolate prison for no reason, it would definitely attract the attention of others. It would be bad if his identity was exposed. Temporarily give up on finding the location of the bitter desolate prison. I want to kill divine sect. Yi Qinghan grinned coldly. How? Divine sect's foundation is very deep. If you don't have any evidence, it will be very difficult for you to defeat him. When the time comes, even if the realm lord is alarmed, he will not be able to convince him to wipe out divine sect. Xiaoye said. Yi Qinghan sank into deep thought as he sat in his chair. Divine sect's contributions were too great and their foundation was too deep. Wanting to kill divine sect was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Just as Yi Qinghan was deep in thought, the divine bird ran over and said wretchedly, "If we don't have any evidence, we can frame him, and tempt him to commit a crime. If we think that the crime is too small, we can throw the emperor and my master out for him to kill." The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up. Indeed, if he forced the divine master and then took the 9th prince out to hunt, he believed that the divine master would go all out and think of a way to kill the emperor and himself. When the time came, even Mu Yunfeng might be implicated. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Investigate the Tong family case. First, wipe out the 8,000 people from divine sect. I don't believe that the divine master won't go all out against me. Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and ordered the investigation of the Tong family case to begin. Snow Realm Mansion was already under the control of Yi Qinghan's people. The mansion master was Nangong Yunlan. She directly ordered the capture of those people, tortured them, and destroyed their dignity. There were all kinds of strange things. Some of the weaker ones even had their souls invaded and their consciousness searched. The grand giant god was actually beaten into a fool. When there were all kinds of strange things happening, no one could keep their mouth shut. The paramount god elder finally couldn't take it anymore. He was tortured by Xiaoye for 3 days and 3 nights using hellish methods. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore. He loosened his teeth and confessed everything that happened in the past. With one person confessing, the rest of the people could only choose to submit in order to survive or to reduce the torture. After signing, Yi Qinghan took the evidence and mobilized 30% of the Snow Realm army's strength to surround Divine Sect. The people who encircled the Tong family back then had to be handed over. This was the bottom line. Otherwise, war would begin. In the end, the Ling family was alarmed. Ji Gu had no choice but to be the peacemaker and mediate. However, Yi Qinghan wasn't willing to back down. He had to do things according to the rules. He had to execute those people back then as a warning to others and also as an explanation to the Tong family. Divine Sect had no other choice. At this time, they didn't have any justification. Once they fought with the Snow Realm army, they would only end up as cannon fodder. They could only grit their teeth and give up on the 8,000 elites. Yi Qinghan took away the 8,000 Divine Sect experts. He didn't even interrogate them outside the holy city. In front of Tong Tong, he ruthlessly killed all of them, broke their spines, crippled their cultivation, and hung them in the wilderness for the world to see. This kind of vengeful massacre was extremely vicious. However, Tong Tong felt refreshed. He was giving them a taste of their own medicine. The resentment became less and less. The chances of them turning into resentment death children were also much lower. Divine Sect spies reported the scene outside the holy city. The Divine Master was furious and filled with killing intent. If I didn't do anything, you would have forced my Divine Sect to its death. The Divine Master seemed to have aged 10,000 years. He had lost the Snow Lotus and the Realm Bone. He had lost 8,000 elites in an instant. What he had lost was not only their lives, but also the dignity of Divine Sect. Everyone in Divine Sect was in danger. Some elites no longer tried to squeeze into Divine Sect. Now that Divine Sect wanted to take the initiative to recruit them, they weren't willing. If this continued, Divine Sect would naturally decline. Yi Qinghan didn't do anything after wiping out the 8,000 Divine Sect elites. Instead, he summoned Shi Gu and Gu Qingyu. The 2 pseudo-realm artifacts could only display their power in the hands of suitable people. As for himself, the pseudo-realm artifacts might be able to display his strength for a long time. However, there had to be a few people in this group of brothers who could take charge. Otherwise, he couldn't just rely on himself. Shi Gu and Gu Qingyu met Yi Qinghan alone. They didn't understand why they would meet him alone. Yi Qinghan had set up a super great divine array in the courtyard. It could prevent any aura from rushing out of the barrier. He then took out the 2 pseudo-realm artifacts. The world energy and terrifying pressure forced the 2 to retreat in panic. Their faces were pale, but the excitement in their eyes was self-evident. Not just one pseudo-realm artifact. Any one of them could flatten everything. As long as they reached Huang Peng's level, they would be able to fight against a heavily injured realm lord with a pseudo-realm artifact. Of course, the premise was that those heavily injured realm lords didn't use their realm artifacts. This is a pseudo-world artifact that I obtained by chance, Yi Qinghan said hoarsely. It is very suitable for you all. It is a waste for me to have it in my hands. If I need to use it, I won't be able to defeat them. If I don't need it, I can kill them without it. Brother, this. Shi Gu couldn't contain his excitement. He wanted to take out the pseudo-realm artifact stone brick, but he was too embarrassed to do so. Gu Qingyu, on the other hand, was much more mature. After all these years, their brotherhood had surpassed that of real brothers. He was much less worried than Yi Kuan. There are too few materials for pseudo-realm artifacts. There are even fewer natural products. So far, I have only found these 2. I can't let everyone in the insane sect wield a pseudo-realm artifact. Not now, not in the future. It's normal to be biased. However, these pseudo-realm artifacts are most suitable for you. Chapter 1332. The holy city was quiet for a long time, and the ninth prince was enjoying himself. He didn't need to be involved in important matters, and he didn't need to make decisions. Xue Fei didn't even want the ninth prince to interfere with politics, so she advised him to listen to Yi Qinghan. At this time, Xue Wuhan and Yu Fei saw that the holy city was completely under Yi Qinghan's control. They seemed to understand why he didn't want them to be emperor. Maybe he has feelings for me and doesn't want to control me. Xue Wuhan sighed. Within the imperial palace, imperial concubine Yu was also deep in thought, but imperial concubine Xue was immersed in the vortex of power. As for submitting to Yi Qinghan, she didn't care at all. At the very least, Yi Qinghan was more handsome, powerful, and able to satisfy her more than the previous emperor. When Yi Qinghan was free for half a day, he would often run to the imperial palace. Perhaps it was because Xue Fei's service was too good, but she didn't know that he had other thoughts. Xiaoye saw Yi Qinghan go to the palace, and she was confused. She asked curiously, "Why do you always go to the palace? What are you doing?" Yi Qinghan sat in his chair and said casually, "Yes. Yes. What do you mean by yes? Is that an answer?" Xiaoye was speechless. Of course it is an answer. Children shouldn't ask questions if they don't understand. By the way, I asked you to contact that old fart. Did you get in touch with him? Yi Qinghan asked calmly. I can't get in touch with him. Xiaoye rolled her eyes and snorted. That old fart. When I need him, he doesn't appear. When I don't need him, he pollutes my eyes. When I'm strong enough, I'll find him. I'll break his legs and make him stay in front of me all day, Yi Qinghan said angrily. I can't find that old fart, but I got another piece of news that you should be interested in. Xiaoye kept him in suspense. What news? Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked. According to the auction house, there will be a pseudo-world treasure and several pseudo-world treasure materials up for auction this year. I heard that a paramount god obtained it by accident while training, but he was unable to control it. He hopes to trade it for some resources and buy a piece of land, Xiaoye said calmly. Yi Qinghan looked at Xiaoye suspiciously and asked in surprise, as an assistant minister, I didn't receive the news. How did you find out before me? Xiaoye rolled her eyes and said discontentedly, who told you to run to the imperial palace all day? Have you forgotten about your lovely wife and little wife? Do you still care about other things? Yi Qinghan shook his head and said helplessly, I went to the palace to search for ancient texts and the bitter desolate prison. What do you think I went there for? All right, you're quite diligent. I got this information from the infernal realm. The auction house has some connections with some supreme powers. Once there's a treasure to be auctioned, they'll definitely notify us. I'm sure the divine sect knows about it too. Xiaoye said indifferently. Yi Qinghan sneered. It seemed that there was no need for another hunt. After the auction, they could force the divine sect to make a move. Just as the two of them finished speaking, a guard ran in with an invitation. When they opened it, they saw that it was an invitation from the auction house. The information on it was exactly the same as the information Xiaoye had received. How can I not take an opportunity given by the heavens? Yi Qinghan clapped his hands. I want 2 pseudo-world treasure materials. As for the finished product, even if I am interested, I cannot afford it. I might not be able to afford the materials. Help me, Xiaoye said seriously. Sure. Not only can I help you get pseudo-world treasure materials, but I can also forge them into pseudo-world treasures. But how are you going to repay me? Think carefully before you answer me. Yi Qinghan teased her. Xiaoye looked at Yi Qinghan's evil smile and knew what he meant. She pouted and looked cute. Yi Qinghan smiled but did not say anything. He got up and left the armchair. He went straight to the palace. Inside the emperor's palace, although the ninth prince could not control the world after waking up, he could still get drunk and lie on the knees of beauties. There were 7 or 8 naked beauties on the bed, and they were having a crazy time. Among them were the previous emperor's concubines. The ninth prince looked very satisfied and was enjoying himself. Dong! Dong! Who is it? Didn't I tell you not to disturb my rest? The ninth prince angrily scolded. Your Majesty, Mr. Zhuo wants to see you. An urgent voice came from outside the door. The ninth prince immediately got up in a panic. He was not afraid of Xue Fei. He was not afraid of anyone, but he was afraid of Yi Qinghan. The ninth prince put on his clothes and ran out. He saw Yi Qinghan standing by the pond outside the palace. He was looking at the water leisurely. He quickly went up and said, Mister, if there is something you need, you can just send someone to tell me. There is no need for you to come here personally. Your Majesty, although I am an assistant minister, I am still an official. How can I do something so disgraceful? Yi Qinghan smiled. The ninth prince smiled and asked, Mister, why have you come to see me? If you have any difficulties, just say it. Half of the empire is yours. Yi Qinghan said seriously, what difficulties can I have? I have come to see you, Your Majesty, to strengthen your empire. I have just received news that the auction house has obtained a pseudo-world artifact and several rare pseudo-world artifact materials. I hope that Your Majesty can follow me to the auction house and obtain these treasures. With another pseudo-world artifact, who will be able to shake Your Majesty's empire? The ninth prince was immediately overjoyed. His empire had been obtained by relying on a pseudo-world artifact stone brick. If he obtained another one, Mu Yunfeng and Ji Gu would not be able to take away his empire even if they worked together. On the other hand, if Mu Yunfeng obtained it, it would be easy for him to turn the tables and overthrow his rule. Mister, do not worry. I will definitely help you obtain the pseudo-world artifact and materials, the ninth prince said excitedly. Yi Qinghan was very satisfied with the ninth prince's attitude. First, he had suppressed him and then supported him. The ninth prince only felt gratitude and fear towards him. The ninth prince understood that if Yi Qinghan could support him, he could also overthrow him and replace the 18th prince. Your Majesty, please continue to enjoy yourself. I will go and visit Empress Dowager Xue. For the next few days, she and the people from the left marshal's residence will be helping to deal with administrative matters. I will personally accompany you to purchase the pseudo-world artifact and materials, Yi Qinghan said with a smile. The ninth prince smiled and watched Yi Qinghan leave. He did not know that he was baiting Yi Qinghan's hands. He was just baiting the divine sect and Mu Yunfeng to take action. After Yi Qinghan left, he went to Empress Xue's palace. Empress Xue had been enjoying torturing the previous emperor's concubines who had fallen out of favor these days. She had enjoyed her days at the peak, and her heart had become somewhat perverted. Yi Qinghan stepped into the room and saw the 7th prince's concubine mother being beaten to a pulp. He could not help but frown. The 7th prince had already escaped with Mu Yunfeng. Now, Empress Xue could only torment his concubine mother. Empress Dowager Xue's body is precious. How can she see blood? Forget it. As for these people, let them live peacefully in the harem so that they do not pollute the Empress Dowager's eyes and soul, Yi Qinghan said lightly. Empress Xue was shocked. She understood what Yi Qinghan meant and quickly ordered people to release the 7th prince's concubine mother. Yi Qinghan dismissed everyone and looked at Empress Xue with an evil smile. He reached out and pressed her to kneel on the ground. He whispered, I like obedient girls, not vicious ones. You have been a bit extreme recently. Chapter 1333. Xue imperial concubine knelt before Yi Qinghan. She was much more docile and obedient. She only knew how to serve and satisfy him. Yi Qinghan did not have many feelings for Shui imperial concubine. They just needed each other. After a while, Yi Qinghan left the palace. Everywhere he went, no one dared to disobey him. The guards and maids in the palace had all been changed. Even a fly could not escape Yi Qinghan's eyes. Now, the people in the palace first recognized the left marshal, then the emperor. Of course, the ninth prince did not care about that. He was high and mighty, and Yi Qinghan had given him enough face. What was there to be dissatisfied with? He was not like the other princes. They were either imprisoned in their mansions or fled like the fourth and seventh princes. The 18th prince had a better fate. Yi Qinghan returned to the left marshal's mansion and began to make arrangements. He sent some trustworthy and powerful people to the auction house. The emperor had personally acted as bait. If they could not get evidence of the divine master's crimes, it would be difficult in the future. Gu Qingyu was overseeing Holy City. He held the pseudo-world treasure divine sword in his hand. The main reason was that he could not completely control the pseudo-world treasure, so he could not use it to its peak. As for Shi Gu, he was born to be a brick. When he held the brick in his hand, he felt like he was one with it. Shi Ji's approval of him was beyond imagination. Yi Qinghan brought Shi Gu, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, Mo Li, and the rest of the younger generation. They were ready to leave. Nangong Yunlan and some others stayed in Holy City to deal with political matters. The older generation's supreme gods, the Chaos Dragon, the first generation Sorcerer God, and Supreme Venerables were all summoned back. The Chaos Dragon turned into a tall and sturdy man. His draconic aura was vast and mighty. It was much purer than Yi Qinghan's draconic aura. His fighting power was not to be trifled with. The first-generation Sorcerer God was more mysterious. He was closer to nature and was hard to grasp. However, he had deep feelings for the Sorcerer race. If the Chaos Realm was destroyed, the Sorcerer race would be extinct. Yi Qinghan had every reason to believe that he would not betray the Chaos Realm. As for the Supreme Celestial Venerate, he had a square face and a full beard. He looked very dignified and dangerous. His body was filled with destructive power, and his invincible aura suppressed people's souls. Perhaps it was related to his cultivation technique and the Nangong Holy Land. With the support of powerful resources, it was very easy for this group of people to become supreme gods of the snow element. Even the younger generation of the insane sect had all become supreme gods. Although there were not many of them, their fighting power was strong enough. They were all supreme kings of the younger generation. They had boundary weapons. At the same level, there were no less than 10 people who could fight against Mu Yunfeng and the others. The successor of the solitary sword sect, Lin Wutian, had not appeared in the world for a long time. Now that he had appeared, his fighting power was comparable to Gu Qingyu's. Yi Qinghan looked at him and thought back to the time when this child came to the insane sect alone with a wooden sword. He was very pleased. He had reached this step by relying on his own talent and strength. Xian Yanxue was still as wretched as before. He could compete with the divine bird. The two of them appreciated each other. As soon as they came out, they gathered together to discuss how to find the treasure. Yi Qinghan looked at the old man of the insane sect with excitement. This was the power to fight back. Only Yi Kun, the troublemaker, was missing. Otherwise, there would be no regrets. At night, the left marshal's residence was quiet. A figure appeared in front of the left marshal's residence. It was Ling Huanyu, the top 5 supreme independent cultivator. I heard that the left marshal was back, so I came to visit. Please help me inform him, Ling Huanyu said politely to the guard. Ling Huanyu's name was known to almost everyone in the divine realm of the Snow Empire. The guard immediately informed Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan immediately got up and went to greet him personally. Outside the left marshal's residence, Yi Qinghan smiled and said, "I didn't know that you would come so late. Please forgive me for not coming out to meet you. I hope you won't be angry with me for disturbing you," Ling Huanyu said with a smile. "Please come in. We can talk inside." Yi Qinghan already had a plan to drag this super expert down with him. Ling Huanyu didn't expect that Yi Qinghan had already set him up. He followed Yi Qinghan into the left marshal's residence. "Sir, I'm here because of the secret divine art. I haven't been able to understand it yet." Ling Huanyu went straight to the point. He took out a stone tablet with a scroll carved on it. The runes were extremely difficult to decipher. They might not even be written in the 9 realms heaven. Ling Huanyu immediately handed the scroll to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan stroked the scroll on the stone tablet. This wasn't a scroll with inscriptions that he had seen before his death. The divine art engraved on it was also not something that he had come into contact with before his death. However, he was sure that once he comprehended this scroll, he would be very powerful. What a strange inscription. I've never seen this kind of writing before. Yi Qinghan was rather surprised. He had definitely seen the writing of all the experts in the 9 realms heaven. However, this scroll was indeed not from the 9 realms heaven. Ling Huanyu didn't interrupt Yi Qinghan. He just watched quietly. Yi Qinghan's consciousness sensed the fluctuations of the profound laws of the inscriptions. Comprehending one technique would allow one to comprehend all techniques. The power system was different, but the end result was the same. Even if it wasn't a secret divine art from the 9 realms heaven, the essence was still the same. The realm lord's consciousness was attached to the scroll on the stone tablet. His eyes were tightly shut as his soul moved along with the profound fluctuations. A special power was produced in his body that was incompatible with the power of the world. The power of the world of the Snow Empire and the divine world rejected this power. However, this power quickly suppressed the supreme divine power of the snow attribute in his body and contended against the world origin force. What a powerful power! It can actually contend against the world origin force. I wonder how it compares to my great desolation divine power. Yi Qinghan's heart trembled. If this power didn't belong to the 9 realms heaven, where did it belong to? Although the power system of the 9 realms heaven's controller transcended the 9 realms heaven, it was compatible with any world origin force in the 9 realms heaven. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to control the 9 realms heaven. Maybe it's a product of the 9 realms heaven. However, I've never seen it before. During the peak era, I traveled through the vast divine desolate universe. Other than the 9 realms heaven, there shouldn't be any other world. Yi Qinghan said to himself with certainty. Seeing Yi Qinghan looking at the scroll with shock and infatuation, Ling Huanyu became even more nervous. He hoped that Yi Qinghan would be able to solve the mystery. Comprehending it together was better than not comprehending it at all. Do you have any clues? Ling Huanyu asked expectantly. Yi Qinghan withdrew his divine sense from the inscription. After thinking for a long time, he said, "This isn't the Snow Nation's divine realm's inscription. The power system it produces is completely different from the power system of the 9 realms heaven. It will be rejected by the world origin force. As far as I know, the power of the other 8 realms won't be rejected by the world origin force because we all belong to the 9 realms heaven. If my prediction isn't wrong, this thing comes from outside the 9 realms. The reason why I've been slow to update recently is because I'm proposing marriage. My girlfriend's house is rather far away, and it will take a few days to get there by plane. Therefore, I've been saving chapters recently. Therefore, no matter how much you guys urge me, it will only make me more anxious. I originally didn't want to say it, but there are too many abusive comments in the book review section. Everyone, please be friendly. Thank you. I also hope that everyone can subscribe to QQ Reading Support. My life has been handed over to this book, and I also hope that this book will have good results. Chapter 1334. Ling Huanyu looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. His eyes were filled with doubt. Were there any living creatures outside the 9 worlds? Impossible. Yi Qinghan looked at Ling Huanyu's bewildered and disappointed expression and sighed softly. This inscription on the scroll is very powerful. It's strong enough to contend against the world origin force and is far stronger than any of the divine powers in the Snow Empire's God realm. However, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. This secret scroll can't be cultivated unless you leave the 9 heavens. This is because the stronger you cultivate, the stronger the repulsive force of the world origin force will be. Back then, when you started cultivating on the right track, you no longer belonged to the 9 heavens. Entering the 9 worlds is hopeless. Hearing this, Ling Huanyu was even more disappointed. He had obtained a treasure but could not cultivate it. It was almost impossible to obtain a suitable inscription. You may doubt my words. Attach your consciousness to mine. I will guide you to comprehend the mysterious waves on the inscription. You will understand, Yi Qinghan said seriously. Thank you, mister. I want to see it. Ling Huanyu nodded expectantly. Even if he had given up on cultivating it, he wanted to understand why. It was better to see it with his own eyes than to hear it from Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's divine sense, which was slightly stronger than a peak paramount god soul, accompanied Ling Huanyu's soul as he tried to comprehend the profound fluctuations of the steels. After a long time, Ling Huanyu was finally able to comprehend a different type of power, but the origin power of the world knocked him away. His own divine sense left Yi Qinghan's divine sense, his face pale. Do you understand now? This is a power that doesn't belong to the 9 worlds, so the power of the 9 worlds is rejecting it. Perhaps this is also the reason why people from other worlds can't enter the 9 worlds. Giving up the 9 worlds for the sake of power is not worth the loss. Also, you can't leave the 9 worlds, which means you can't cultivate it, Yi Qinghan reminded him. Ling Huanyu sat down on the stool in disappointment. He had come full of joy, but all he got was disappointment. I am curious. Where did you find this thing? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. I was accidentally pulled into a spatial storm at the border of the 9 worlds. I found it motionless in the storm, so I knew it was a treasure. However, I did not expect it to be a secret inscription that cannot be cultivated. Ling Huanyu smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan placed the inscription scroll on the table in front of Ling Huanyu and looked at him quietly. Ling touched the inscription scroll reluctantly. It seemed that he longed for power. If he had the chance to leave the 9 worlds, he would not hesitate to cultivate this scroll. Yi Qinghan could tell that he was a madman when it came to cultivation. He was very stubborn, and would do anything as long as he was strong enough. Mister, do you like this scroll? If you like it, why don't I exchange it with you for some secret techniques that you can cultivate? You can even use resources to exchange for it. After a long time, Ling Huanyu finally gave up on the inscription scroll. He had no use for it at the moment, so he could not cultivate it. I do have some secret techniques that can help you reach the World Overlord realm. However, I'm afraid you won't dare to cultivate it. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and set up an array, isolating them from the outside world. Ling Huanyu looked at Yi Qinghan in astonishment and said proudly, Mister, it's not that you can't tell. If it's possible, I want to cultivate even this inscription scroll. I want to leave this world and explore the mysteries beyond the 9 worlds. I don't have the support of a family, so I don't know how to manage the power of the mortal world. I can't get a better cultivation technique. If there are better mysteries, is there any secret technique that I don't dare to cultivate? Great. Desolate. Tao. Scripture. Do you dare to cultivate it? Yi Qinghan asked word by word. Hiss. Ling Huanyu's body tensed up and he sucked in a breath of cold air. The secret techniques of the great desolate domain were forbidden from being cultivated. No one was allowed to cultivate them. Not to mention the legendary Great Desolate Tao Scripture. You have the Great Desolate Tao Scripture? Ling Huanyu asked in astonishment. Yi Qinghan smiled. He sat opposite Ling Huanyu and said indifferently, I have the first 6 stages of the Great Desolate Tao Scripture. I'm still missing the last 3 stages. As long as you dare to cultivate it, I can help you find the last 3 stages. I can even use my authority to help you obtain the resources of the Great Desolate Domain. What are your conditions? Ling Huanyu asked in a deep voice. Help me unify the 9 worlds. You can fly as high as the sky will be. Yi Qinghan's domineering aura soared to the heavens as he said firmly. Ling Huanyu's pupils contracted and he almost couldn't breathe. His dream of becoming a world overlord was already lofty enough. However, he didn't expect this seemingly cultured and refined left marshal to be even crazier than him. He was simply a supreme lunatic in the world of lunatics. Are you joking with me? Ling Huanyu asked with a frown. It seems like you were joking when you said you dared to cultivate the Great Desolate Tao Scripture. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Of course not. Ling Huanyu said with a frown. Since you dare to cultivate the Great Desolate Tao Scripture, why can't I unify the 9 worlds? Yi Qinghan asked with a smile. The two of them looked at each other for a long time. Suddenly, they burst into laughter and said in unison, You're a lunatic. So am I. The laughter in the courtyard didn't stop for a long time. After a long time, Yi Qinghan put away the steel inscription scroll and passed the first 6 stages of the Great Desolate Tao Scripture to Ling Huanyu through his consciousness. He reminded him in a serious voice, remember, if you don't want to die, before you become a world overlord, don't use the secret techniques of the Great Desolate Tao realm, let alone the Great Desolate Force. Otherwise, you will die miserably, just like the destruction of the Great Desolate Domain. I understand. Ling Huanyu nodded solemnly. I want to ask you something. What do you think about the chaotic war of the 9 worlds? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. Ling Huanyu shrugged and replied indifferently, it's just racial discrimination. The Great Desolate Domain is too strong. It caused the other 7 worlds to be disgusted and join forces to resist. It's reasonable. This is how humans think. They are jealous of evil, virtuous, capable, and the strong. They hate ugly, cruel, weak, and incapable people. No one can be perfect. No matter how perfect you are, there will always be people who will find fault with you. Therefore, I don't hate the Great Desolate Domain or the other worlds. I only care about things, not people. Therefore, I don't dislike the secret techniques of the Great Desolate Domain. Wise men live forever. Lunatics are the king. I hope we can cooperate happily. Yi Qinghan smiled. The cooperation between the 2 lunatics had reached an agreement. Happy cooperation. At this moment, Ling Huanyu felt an inexplicable admiration and worship for Yi Qinghan. For the first time, he was conquered by his charisma. Tomorrow, I'll be going to the auction house to buy some things. Brother Ling, come with me. If there's anything you like, just name a price. I'll give it to you, Yi Qinghan said generously. Straightforward. For someone like me who doesn't have any restrictions, wherever I go is my home. The day the 9 worlds return to one is the day I can dance freely in the universe, Ling Huanyu said straightforwardly. Chapter 1335. Ling Huanyu readily agreed to Yi Qinghan's suggestion, but he didn't know that he had already stepped into Yi Qinghan's trap. Once he was dragged down, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Yi Qinghan's lips twitched, causing Ling Huanyu's hairs to stand on end. He felt as though he had fallen into an icy cavern. You can't be thinking of harming me, right? Ling Huanyu asked with a frown. Yi Qinghan immediately replied righteously, what are you talking about? You can ask around. Those who are familiar with me know that I'm a gentleman. Which of my brothers hasn't gone through life and death situations together? Seeing Yi Qinghan's righteous expression, Ling Huanyu still felt a little uneasy, but he reluctantly accepted it. After settling Ling Huanyu, Yi Qinghan returned to his residence with a smile on his face. He was in an exceptionally good mood, and he specially called Sister Yao over to serve him. Master seems to be in a good mood. Seeing the unconcealable smile on Yi Qinghan's solemn face, Sister Yao couldn't help but exclaim in delight. A joyous occasion makes one feel refreshed. Wife, come and serve me, Yi Qinghan sang in a strange voice. After which, Yi Qinghan forcefully pounced on her, taking the initiative to attack. Sister Yao was so excited that she took the initiative to welcome him. Thousands of pounces caused her soul to tremble. The night passed quickly, and the sky gradually brightened. The people of the left marshal's residence were already making preparations for their departure. Yi Qinghan hugged the perfect Sister Yao lazily, as though nothing in the world had anything to do with him. Get up, it's not good for others to see us like this. Yi Qinghan's joyous mood was suppressed, and his expression turned cold once more. Sister Yao leaned against his chest and said softly, Master, what do you intend to do about the bride from the Wang clan? You can't possibly leave her hanging, right? You haven't even consummated your marriage yet. Yi Qinghan was silent for a long time before he replied hoarsely, let's talk about it in the future. I don't have the time to worry about her right now. With a sigh, Sister Yao put on her clothes and got up. She brought a basin of hot water over for Yi Qinghan to wash up before heading out together with him. 13 experts from the Primal Chaos Realm and 10,000 soldiers from the Snow Realm protected the Ninth Prince and Yi Qinghan as they departed. Ling Huanyu was quietly mixed in with the crowd. He was the only unpredictable force. Mu Yunfeng and the Divine Master would never have predicted that he would follow Yi Qinghan. The Divine Bird and Xian Yanxue had their arms around each other's shoulders. They were secretly discussing something. No one knew what they were planning. Yi Qinghan never wanted to ask about the Divine Bird and Xian Yanxue. As long as they didn't lose out, they could do anything. The army galloped forward. Their mounts were the best snow wolves. The banner of the wolf cavalry fluttered in the wind. Wherever they passed, the relay stations would quickly provide supplies and replace the best snow wolves. The snow wolves were 3 meters tall. They had powerful limbs that could crush rocks. Their running speed was comparable to a peak giant god. Furthermore, they were very patient. They could run at their fastest speed for 3 to 5 days. There were too many people in the army. They couldn't use teleportation and could only travel long distances. For safety, Yi Qinghan naturally wouldn't use too much energy to teleport. There was still about half a year before the auction. The group wandered along the way, giving the Ninth Prince some distraction. The Ninth Prince was free and unfettered. However, he didn't know that he could be killed at any time. He had already thrown out the bait and was waiting for Mu Yunfeng and the Divine Sect to make their move. Along the way, the various prefecture heads and overlords were diligent. Every time they arrived at a prefecture, there would be hundreds of thousands of ordinary soldiers guarding them. They would safely escort them out of the prefecture. Another prefecture would pick them up at the border. They were all afraid that the new emperor and the left marshal would meet with an accident in their territory. Yi Qinghan didn't want to refuse. Otherwise, it would be too obvious. The journey was safe. The Divine Master didn't want to cause the Realm Master to come out of seclusion by massacring hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Mu Yunfeng didn't dare to go overboard. Even if he was the Realm Master's disciple, he wouldn't be able to escape death. In the end, the Realm Master still cared about his direct descendants. After all, blood was thicker than water. After crossing more than 10 prefectures, they headed straight for the auction house. 3 months later, the army finally arrived at the 9 Emperor's prefecture. This was the territory of the late Emperor's 9th brother, who was also the 9th Prince's 9th uncle. This place was named the 9 Emperor's prefecture. Snow Ninth Emperor. This person was once a genius of his generation. He had a powerful cultivation and served the Snow Realm army. However, hundreds of thousands of years ago, in order to show his attitude, he didn't want to fight for the throne. He voluntarily retreated to the Nine Emperors Prefecture and became the Prince of Peace. He was deeply loved by the late emperor. The ninth prince also liked this ninth uncle. They had met several times. He purposely looked for Yi Qinghan and asked, "Mister, the Nine Emperors Prefecture is in front of us. It's my ninth uncle's territory. I haven't seen him for many years. Can we go and pay him a visit?" Yi Qinghan knew about Snow Ninth Emperor's identity. He was also very curious about this person. In the past, he could have fought for the throne. However, he mysteriously chose to give up. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the Snow Marshal and the late emperor. "Let's go and take a look. There's still time," Yi Qinghan said faintly. After obtaining Yi Qinghan's permission, the ninth prince was filled with joy. He thought that Yi Qinghan still respected him. He was in high spirits and personally led the army to the Nine Emperors Prefecture. Snow Ninth Emperor had already known that the ninth prince was approaching his territory under Yi Qinghan's lead. He sent his most outstanding son, Xuefeng, to personally lead the army to the border to welcome them. Yi Qinghan silently followed behind. Tong Tong rode on the same horse as him. However, little Tong didn't follow. This operation was too dangerous. If the divine sect really took action, who knew how many people would die? The snow wolves in front howled in unison. Hua! The army at the border of the Nine Emperors Prefecture roared in unison. Their voices shook the heavens. The momentum of the private army didn't lose to the snow border army. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He looked at the army at the border of the Nine Emperors Prefecture with admiration in his eyes. This Snow Ninth Emperor is definitely not an ordinary person. Yi Qinghan secretly praised. Yi Qinghan slightly increased his speed and caught up to the front. He was shoulder to shoulder with the emperor. His eyes were like torches as he stared at the leader of the army at the border of the Nine Emperors Prefecture. His eyes emitted a terrifying radiance. His heartbeat sped up and his blood flowed rapidly. Is it an illusion? Why do I feel the aura of a desolate person? Yi Qinghan looked at the young leader in shock. He had a feeling of disbelief. After the desolate women in the snow country and the divine world became slaves, they would be executed if they were pregnant. It was impossible for them to be descendants of the desolate race. Although this person's desolate race bloodline was suppressed and very weak, as the desolate race's father, Yi Qinghan, it was impossible for him not to feel it. As he got closer to the young man, Yi Qinghan became more and more certain that this person definitely had the desolate race bloodline. "Mister, the young leader is my cousin, Xuefeng. His cultivation is quite good, but the ninth imperial uncle doesn't want him to leave the Nine Emperors Prefecture. He also doesn't let him fight. He rarely leaves the prefecture. It seems like the imperial uncle still likes me." The ninth prince smiled happily. Yi Qinghan also revealed a faint smile. From the ninth prince's words, the Snow Ninth Emperor knew that Xuefeng had the desolate race bloodline. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suppressed him and prevented him from leaving the Nine Emperors Prefecture. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.